All right. Hello? Can you all hear me in here too? But I can't hear you.
Never officially said if he had one or not. So I think he's still a maybe.
PQ says just watching, so none from PQ, which is fine.
Yep. Fine. Yeah, I know Lax maybe would have one.
Maybe we're playing shit, what is it called? The game on screen right now. What is the name of this game?
At least.
Talking Points.
Talking Points.
Yeah, we're doing Talking Points.
Whew.
That's good.
29. Hello. Okay.
Hello.
Well, who does want to go next? Someone need to decide.
I want to go. Yeah, I'm set up here.
Back to stream.
Yep. I'm gonna start slideshow, and then I'll put it on the Discord. I'll put it. Hopefully, it'll go on the Discord that gives you that option, right? Yeah. Better text readability, low frame rate. That should help. Oh, there's good. So yeah, be ready for a flashbang if you're watching on stream. This is a very bright presentation. Google Slides default layout and theme.
Hell yeah.
Be fair. Yeah, my audio's working. Okay. All right. Don't worry about me. Try not to talk. So. There we go. I think we're all set here.
All right. So I'm going to be talking today about a very topic. We're going to talk about getting your router in the best shape. Getting shapewear for your router, getting it some nice curves, super sexy, so that your router performs at peak performance. All right. So I'm going to give you a situation right here. This is me and my little sister who totally exists in real life. So I'm streaming. I'm streaming on Twitch. I'm doing my thing. I'm uploading, and my little sister all of a sudden decides to post her latest YouTube short, hot new TikTok, guaranteed like 5,000 in subscribers instantly. And well, what happens in that situation is, well, we've got. I'm not fortunate enough to live in one of those places where it has like, the gigabit internet line, the super fast. Like I've got good download speed, but my upload speed is pretty trash. So no matter which way you look at it, if I'm streaming on OBS and Emoto decides to upload something to her YouTube or her TikTok, we're both competing for some of the bandwidth for our upload line. And what do you think happens in that situation? Like, how do you think the router, just like instinctively, how do you think the router like handles that when it's got an upload? It's got multiple things it has to upload on a limited upload line because you only have so much upload speed, right? Well, what it actually does in almost all cases is it just creates a basic first in, first out queue. Like if a packet from my OBS gets to the router, it just waits there and it just queues them up. Like, all right, here's a packet from SG4E. We'll put that in the line, and then here's a packet from SG4E Zumoto. Like that gets in the line. Just whatever gets to the router first just gets queued up to go out. That's how most routers handle it. And you think like that's probably okay. Like it seems like that might be how I would do it if I was going to create a router and how it would handle this kind of situation. I mean that makes sense, but now consider this next scenario. Let's say you got, I don't know, like the Emoto is uploading something, or you're posting a video to YouTube in the background, and you're also playing PUBG. Now, what's happening in this situation is you've got, some computer that's uploading, it's using that whole bandwidth, and then you're playing PUBG, which uses very little bandwidth, and you just lined up that perfect headshot, and it's got to get to the server, the PUBG server, to get that confirmation to you actually got that kill. The server is going to verify. Well, it's kind of a time sensitive thing, right? Like if we've got this queue where it's just whatever gets there first, well, there's a bunch of data that's getting uploaded to YouTube that's already gotten to the router that's just waiting in line in that queue. And there's your headshot that needs to get to the PUBG game servers to give you that confirmation. Like if the queue is just first in, first out, like there's a lot of stuff ahead of it. So the problem, this problem with this design where it's just first in, first out, what gets on the upload line, is it doesn't have it has complete indifference for the data. Like realistically, it doesn't matter if that YouTube video takes like a split second longer to upload. And me playing PUBG, like my like packets from that game get a little more priority. That would be preferential. But the reality is, if the queue is just first in, first out, like that guy's already moved. The guy I'm trying to shoot in the head has already moved by the time that my headshot gets to the PUBG servers. So that's a bit of a problem. This phenomenon is called buffer bloat. And buffer bloat is defined by when outgoing packets at the router arrive faster than they can be forwarded to the internet. Most of us have kind of restricted upload connections. That's how it is for most of the US, where you get pretty good download rate, but pretty slow upload rate. So the ISP is only going to let you have so much upload. That's what you're paying for. So if you're trying to upload faster than that, they're just going to throttle you. And that creates a bottleneck at your router. So when that bottleneck happens, it can't forward the packets fast enough to the internet. Those packets get delayed. That's a key word. Those packets get delayed, they don't get dropped. Why is that important? Because the internet has a lot of, it's developed by pretty smart people. The smart people who created the internet thought about the situation like, okay, well, there might be congestion that occurs somewhere on the networks. How can we address that? And they came up with these mitigation techniques that help in situations where connections get oversaturated. But those mitigation techniques rely on packets being dropped, in other words, discarded. And that's when they kick in and start to like slow down or rectify some of the saturation. But what happens is, since the packets are just delayed, the line basically looks like it's just slow. Like those packets are getting there eventually, they're just taking a little bit longer. So it doesn't seem like there's a congestion. It just seems like you've got a slow line, which means that none of these mitigation techniques actually kick in. And the result of that is those time-sensitive packets get delayed. Now I put the number that, like, instead of being like a few milliseconds, it takes over like a quarter of a second. That's just to give you an estimate of what this might, what the delay might be, but it in fact fluctuates. It could be more than that, maybe it's a little bit less, might depend on the router, but let's give an idea of what you might see instead. Now, the problems associated with buffer bloat, kind of already touched on, but one of them is the router having indifference towards the landlines. So, like, if I have multiple devices on my local network, it doesn't care. It doesn't care if one device is using up all the bandwidth, and then, like, I don't know, like your mom's computer just wants to check their email. Like, even though the email computer only wants to use little data, the router doesn't care. It's just like, well, whatever gets here, I'm sending out. I don't care about, trying to give a little more preference to the person who's using a little bit of data and throttle the person using more data. It's just whatever comes to me, I'm just going to put on the queue and send. That's not really great for what we want. Which also touches on the other issue, which is priority. Like the PUBG example, I have data that's time sensitive. I want that to go out immediately. I want that to jump to the start of the queue. But the router doesn't care. It's like, well, data is all equal. Like you send it to me, it's going to go out eventually. I don't really care. So do you have buffer bloat? Well, if you're not sure, then you probably do, because well, most solutions need to be configured manually. If you never went in your router and set up some kind of mitigation, then it's probably not there, and you would be susceptible to this problem. So far, I've been talking about upload speed, but buffer bloat can occur on the download speed as well. I just think it's easier since we're more used to more constrained bandwidth on the upload side than the download side. I think it's easier to conceptualize that way. But you've probably also experienced this on the other side, which is download. Like, have you ever had someone on your local network download a Steam game, and all of a sudden the internet connection turns to crap? That's because of buffer bloat. That's because that one person who's taking up that whole line, like their stuff is getting there, and then your stuff is like, nope, it just came first. So that's the buffer bloat can occur on both sides, and that's an instance where it's happening on the ingress side instead of going out to the internet, coming from the internet. Now another reason, well, in addition to requiring some manual configuration, another reason that potentially router manufacturers haven't bothered to try and create like an automatic solution or some kind of mitigation in the router is because the solutions require some router CPU. And, if you really don't care, or it figures like, oh, well, maybe you just expect if you just don't have the solution enabled by default, then you can just, put a crappier CPU in and the router will still work. It doesn't, basically not, and might not be as important to the consumer, and leaving the CPU open to just do general network tasks. And I'll post this link later, but if you're curious, if you're like, well, maybe I do have it then, there's a website. It's like a speed test, but specifically for buffer bloat. Takes about 1 minute to run. It uses up your whole connection, so like you want to do it when maybe after everybody's PowerPoint presentation when you're not downloading anything, so once your network just sort of be at a default, like nothing's happening when it tests you, like you're not uploading, you're not downloading to do the test. But yeah, I'll post that link later, and feel free to. It'll give you a letter grade. It'll say like with A to D, how good is your router's handling of buffer bloat, and you can feel free to post that in Sp0ck's Discord somewhere. It'd be cute to see what everybody's results are. Now, if you're on a router from that you just like bought at the store, and it comes with its own Linksys put their own like firmware on there, Netgear puts their firmware on there. You're thinking like, okay, how do I solve this for my router? Well, you can go to the admin console, which is usually, like that 192.168.1.1, sign in with your password. And you can look in there somewhere for either QoS, which stands for quality of service, or SQM, which I think is like simple queue management. You find either of those like labels or tabs somewhere, try enabling that. And hopefully it works. Like since your router is like just made by, every router is different. They're made by different companies. Like, hard to say what kind of settings they're going to be able to give you there to fine tune that. Like you're basically at the mercy of what they let you do and what they don't let you do. So enable it and see if it helps. Like do the speed test again and see if you get a better grade. Now maybe you're thinking, well, is there a better way, SG? Like am I at the mercy of whatever corporation manufactured my router, and whether they have like good quality of service, whether like this works well, maybe it works poorly? And the answer is yes. Yes, there is an alternative. And it is to use OpenWRT, which is for Chads only. That is the Linux penguin, if he was a Chad. And this is an open source project that will replace your router's firmware. If you're wondering what devices are supported, you can go to the website, and they painstakingly keep track of every router that's supported for it. And so far that number is up to 2,783 different router models across brands. So there's a good chance you can run it. There's a good chance there's a build for it. Now if you want to give this a try, there's usually a way to go back if you don't like it. You're like, I don't know, this thing's too complicated for me. Like there's usually a way to go back to the original firmware for your router. But you do want to make sure you read completely the guide to how to update to OpenWRT before you start. So if you do it wrong, you might like brick your router. And because the process is going to require the router to like be offline, you're not going to be able to go on the internet and do some troubleshooting. So you might want to make sure that you've got like your phone, you got another internet connection that's not dependent on your home router to maybe do some troubleshooting if you get stuck. But it's a full Linux installation. You get the full power of Linux on there. It's got the Linux kernel. You get an SSH terminal. They've made it over the years. This project's been around since 2004. So, and it's like the last release was published a month ago. Like it's active development. It's very mature. And they've also added a web console, which is if you know, you don't want to be like a hacker man who does like all the configuration with just like, you know, keyboard. You type in all the stuff. They have like, you go to a web page on your browser, which is what you're used to with like proprietary router software, and that's come a long way since back in 2004. Like, you can do so much stuff without having to open like SSH now, which is really good for maybe people want to give it a try, but they don't feel comfortable with like some of the more like, I don't know, Linuxy stuff you have to do. So that's worth giving a try if that sounds something you want to do. So back to the two problems with buffer bloat, and let's now talk about the solution. So the indifference towards the landlines, where, you know, we've got all these devices on the network, and some are using a lot of bandwidth and some are using a little bandwidth. A solution to that is this concept of fairness, which is like, okay, this one device is uploading like a 200 gigabyte file to the internet. This other device just wants to like do email, watch a YouTube video, send an email, go to a website. If we had fairness, that one device that just wants to do a little bit wouldn't have to wait, their experience wouldn't be marginalized by that bandwidth hog that's uploading the 2,000 gigabyte file. So one of the solutions is we implement this fairness queue, which looks at like the sources of the traffic and gives priority to those sources that are using less. And the other solution that we have that works towards that data priority issue, where I want the PubGet headshot to get to the server immediately and not wait for everything else that's on my LAN that's waiting to be uploaded. We can use the prioritization solution, which is like, okay, well, we'll actually mark packets as this is important, please send this out immediately, and that'll be able to jump the line. So one of those actual pieces of software that does this is called Cake. And Cake stands for Common Applications Kept Enhanced. It's designed to just work. There's these two different setup scripts called Piece of Cake, which is just a funny play on the expression piece of cake as well. Layer Cake, which gives you more customization options. This is all you have to do. You enable it in your router. You set your download speed. You can choose to use a download side, upload side, or both. I'd recommend both. You do a speed test beforehand. You put in your upload speed, your download speed, and that's it. It just, at that point, it will fairly divide the upload line among devices on your network. So if like you've got two devices in the same class and one is uploading a YouTube video and the other is uploading a YouTube video, it'll divide your total bandwidth in half. So I'll say, okay, this device gets half, this other device gets half. And it's not whoever gets to the router first. It's not like, oh, well, like these packets made it on the network faster. They just got in the queue faster as they're going out. It implements that fairness. And also gives you the ability to prioritize some of that data, like the PubGet headshot, where I could be able to mark packets, and you can customize Cake where, okay, if you see certain packets, give priority to these packets going to the upload line faster. Let's talk more about that prioritization. Like, how does that happen? It uses a field in the IP header itself called DSCP, which stands for Differentiated Services Code Point. This has been a part of the IP standard since 1998, although it was reworked. It's been in IPv6 since initially. So the fact that this is part of the IP header means everything you do on the internet can have DSCP on it. So it operates at a level that's like anything you're doing on the internet can have this like flag set to it. And there's many different flags have been standardized over a bunch of different like standards over several years. But just to give a few, one is the CS0, which has a value of 0. You just set that integer on the packet. That would be your standard traffic. That's just like best effort. Like, okay, well, it's 0. Like this field is unset by default. So the implication is this is the default. Like just, I'm making no statement about whether this is priority or not. This is just traffic. That's what the 0 value is. Gives you access to the CS1 flag, which is the value of 8. That would be signaling to Cake or any kind of solution at your router that's DSCP aware that this traffic is bulk traffic. It's not important. It's like a long-term video upload. It's like BitTorrent traffic being uploaded. It's traffic you don't care about. Like if there's bandwidth left over, sure, use it. But I'd rather have other traffic be prioritized over this. So CS1 is great for deprioritized traffic. You really don't care about how fast it gets to the internet. And another flag is EF, which stands for expedited forwarding. You set the value to 46 on the in the IP header, and that's to signal that you have high priority traffic that you're uploading here, which would be something like voice, something that needs to go out quickly. And if you go in Discord settings, I believe it's under voice and video, you'll actually find this all the way at the bottom that says enable quality of service, high packet priority. Hints to your router that packets of Discord is transmitting are high priority. Some routers or internet services providers may misbehave. I don't know about that last part. That must just be a catch-all. Like, I don't know. But yeah, what this would do, I haven't actually tested it, but I believe, well, this would set a DSCP flag. I believe the DSCP flag it would set would be that EF flag, because that's basically made for voice. And yeah, so that lets Discord mark those packets that if your router is DSCP aware, which you have to configure, then your Discord like voice would get prioritized over other stuff on your network that doesn't have that flag. So we have this concept of, okay, we can put labels on traffic, and those labels are DSCP, and those labels can signal how important the traffic is. Now, what does the router do with that traffic? Well, Cake implements these models called diffserv. There's, well, look at them quickly. There's diffserv 3, there's diffserv 4, there's diffserv 8, which is just, that is a monstrosity. But anyway, this creates different bins for those packets to go. So diffserv 3 provides 3 different bins. You can see them there. There's bulk, there's best effort, and there's voice. So basically, it's gonna, this is where like, part of the reason why I wanted to make this presentation is because I've been researching it lately, and the internet is not great about this. This seems like kind of stuff that, like, networking solutions that a lot of people would maybe need, and there's not a lot of information about it. So I wanted to write that information down before I forgot it. But yeah, like, for example, diffserv 8 just puts packets into 8 different tins, and none of them are labeled. And they all have really weird default values. But anyway, diffserv 3 will divide your prioritization buckets into 3 different places. It'll give the bulk, which is like, this I don't really care about. Best effort, which is like, yeah, this is, I care about this, but it's not super important. Just do your best. And puts the last one in voice, which is the most priority. Like, this should go out with minimum lag and be higher priority. Diffserv 4 would be the configuration where you want an additional thing in there, an additional bucket, and that adds the video bucket, which you would be able to put a different DSCP label and get things into that bucket. And then diffserv 8 is really funny to me because this is like not documented anywhere. If you Google diffserv 8 and Cake or TC Cake, you'll get one guy's blog spot where he doesn't even, his whole blog article's not about this. It's just like a tangent. It's like, oh, like, I was wondering what diffserv 8 did, and I couldn't find anything, so I went to the source code, and you can go here, and it kind of defines what these buckets are. I also went to the source code. It doesn't really define what they are. It just kind of lays out like what the intention was. But yet those are the don't use this one, but it exists. It exists. So we know we can assign flags of priority. We know that those flags affect which buckets they go, which tells the router how to prioritize them. But how do we actually get those flags on the packets themselves before they're sent out? Well, there's different ways. One is the application itself can do it, which is that setting in Discord. Like, any application that sends packets to the network can just, by its own, put those DSCP flags on those packets. But unless you have the source code for that application, you're basically out of luck for how you're going to customize that. So that's one way, is the application does it itself. The other way is you can have your operating system do it. Now that gives you the power. And say, for example, like back in the Emoto SG4E example, I want my traffic from OBS not to drop frames, even if my little sister is like uploading stuff to the internet. In Windows, well, you can do it in Linux, but I'll give you a Windows example here first. You can tell with PowerShell, you can say, okay, whenever the obs64.exe executable, whenever that's sending out packets, this is what that command does. Set those packets to that DSCP value, 34. And if you do this, you're also going to want to make sure you bring up Task Manager and check the other processes that OBS spawns, because it's not just that one. You want to do that for other ones too, because it spawns like an FFmpeg process, and that one also can sometimes upload packets depending on where your streaming destination is. So make sure you repeat this for everything that like OBS is like creating, like all the executables that OBS calls to stream as well. But once you do that, then yeah, whenever OBS sends packets, they will have that priority, that DSCP value on it, which is cool. You can also do this on the router. Now this doesn't help you for the OBS example, because since it's at the router doesn't know, it has a different sort of purview on those packets. Like it doesn't know that those packets came from OBS, because OBS is not running on the router, so they just look like packets. But like the router can still see other things, like be able to map by LAN IP, for example. Like, okay, all packets that come from this local IP, I want those to have this DSCP flag. You do want to make sure, though, if you use this example to set DSCP, that your LAN is IPv4 only, which is probably not the case. It's probably like both the version 4 and version 6. In that case, you want to make sure you set a MAC address, because that'll capture all of the packets from that device, and even if they share different IPs. Also, if you don't have a static IP for the device, which you might be the case, the MAC address will always catch it. And now we talked mostly about uploading stuff, but DSCP is part of the Internet Protocol. And the Internet Protocol is not just local, it's on the whole Internet. So DSCP can also be sent to you from the Internet. It's not just on your local network. You can get packets from the Internet that might have a DSCP flag assigned. And you can choose on your router whether you want to honor that or not. Like maybe like Netflix. I don't actually know if Netflix does this, but they could. Or YouTube. They could say, all right, well, these are video packets, so put them in the video bin, or like consider prioritizing them over like non-streaming packets that don't really care about how long it takes to get to a device. So that's something that can be configured on the internet to be sent to you, instead of you sending your packets to the router for prioritization on the upload line. Okay, so let's go back to that example with the Emoto. Let's say I want to make sure that when I'm streaming, the little sister can't steal my internet. Like my OBS stream doesn't drop any frames. She's got to wait. Like her traffic gets deprioritized. Can I do that? Well, okay. So start with diffserve4. That gives you the 4 different labels. That gives you the bulk, the best effort, the video, and the voice. Let's say I use Windows to set all my OBS traffic with that DSCP flag that gets it classified in the video bucket, which means it has higher priority than that bulk and best effort traffic. So I shouldn't get any frame drops that way, right? Because my stream now has a little more priority that I'm telling the router. Does that work? Well, maybe not. We have to look at one more thing, and that's this threshold in the output of the cake configuration. This is just the top part of these this output, which is basically a like statistics, like info, like log of your cake setup. And well, what exactly is the threshold? I had to look it up. It doesn't really define it well. It's easy to understand though once you actually figure out what it is. And how the threshold works is if the consumption in that bin is less than the threshold, then that traffic is prioritized. If the consumption in that bin is greater than the threshold, then it's deprioritized. So looking at those thresholds there, where we have bulk, which just gets a little bit, that makes sense. It gets, my upload line is 10 megabits per second. So what it does here, the default cake configuration is just reserves a little bit for that bulk. Best effort, it gives the full amount. Video, it gives 5 megabits, and then voice, it gives, well, the 25%, 2.5 megabits. Well, if your OBS stream is greater than that video threshold of 5 megabits, it'll be deprioritized, which is a problem for me because I stream at 6 megabits on YouTube. So I'm getting deprioritized actually by being in that bin. But even if I lowered my bit rate, the fact that best effort is still that high, it's 100% threshold by default, means that if something on the best effort line is being uploaded, it's never going to be deprioritized because of just how this threshold thing works. Because it can't ever get above that, because that's my cap. My upload speed is capped at 10 megabits, so that's where that number is there. So even if I like, as long as I'm in the video the video bucket, I'm still at the mercy of whatever's happening on the best effort bucket, which is unfortunate. That's okay, right? Because I can see a solution. I can see a solution. It's just we tweak those threshold values. We bring best effort down, and maybe I bring video up to 6 megabits. I bring best effort down like super low, so that video is always going to be prioritized. And when best effort gets big enough, it's going to get deprioritized. So that should work, right? Well, unfortunately, there's this issue on the Cake GitHub. That's the link right there. It's make tin bandwidth threshold configurable. It's issue 130. I was not the only person who had this idea of, hey, what if I could configure these thresholds? And that's the thought. That's the owner, the creator of Cake himself, back in 2020, had this to say about this proposal. The hard coding of the levels here is an outgrowth of Cake's design. John Nagel once said philosophically that every application has a right to one packet in the network, and I really believe in that. I think strict priority queues are easily misapplied and are dangerous to the health of the network. Let me give you 2 examples. ARP is something you only rarely think about, but when it fails, so does the network. It's easy with a strict priority queue to forget about that. Or IPv6RA. I've done it. Similarly, I use a routing protocol between links. Mine happens to use CS6, which helps, but it doesn't use ECN, which means you can starve it too, which is a subject to a long philosophical debate I have no time for here. Being fair seems to be a win across the board. Being slightly unfair as diff sort support allows you to be, while always allowing some bandwidth for all classes, seems to help also. However, Cake works from models, of which there are 4 presently: best effort, 3-tier, 4-tier, and precedence. The last one should not be used. Yeah, that's the one we looked at where I was like, this is a monstrosity. It's 8 different tins, and none of them are documented. I mean, even he admits that. Out of which fairness is applied essentially first. If you would like to write a different model with different thresholds and present a use case for it, it is straightforward. Yeah, just send a if you think you've got a better idea, send a PR so I can just deny it. And yeah, as for prioritizing hosts, well, this next part is good too. As for prioritizing individual hosts, well, some folk would really, really like that. Some folk insist on selling their features so they can say that Netflix is prioritized or gaming is prioritized. And per host, per flow FQ really just generally kills the problem invisibly. People that want it, I tend to ask them to just turn on Cake and measure first. Well, I did that and I still dropped frames, so. But he knows that would be a good feature. He just refuses to do it. That said, it is feasible to do that in HTB or in adding yet another layer of dir to the existing algorithms on a per host. I got a kick out of this because like this is just how it is, right? Like we have the solution. It's what this is such I feel like this is just such a logical common sense thing to have. Like all these thresholds are just they're just arbitrarily. This guy just decided, okay, bulk is going to get 6.25% of your upload. Video is going to get 50%. Voice is going to get 25%, and best effort is going to get 100%. He just set that, and I don't think it wouldn't ruin the model if I could just take those arbitrary thresholds that the guy set and just customize them a little bit. I think that'd be a great feature, but he sees it. We're at philosophical differences here. Anyway, so you're like, SG, I'm done. I don't need Cake. Like, just tell me how to do it. Like, I want complete control over my network. Is there a way? And I say yes. Yes, there is. The greatest tool ever created is TC. And this is for GigaChads only, because if you use it wrong, your network will break. If it breaks, you can just reset the router. It won't permanently break. You got to really do hard to permanently break it, but you can definitely test this a little bit. Copyright 1999. This goes way back, this tool, TC. Linux CLI program stands for traffic control, configures traffic rules in the Linux kernel, built into OpenWRT. So if you already have that installed, you're good to go. It's got multiple additional kernel modules you can download. If you need more filtering, you could just like plugins. You just download them through the OpenWRT package manager. You're good to go. It empowers all kinds of networking monstrosities. You can do whatever you want on your network, and therefore it's absolutely based. If you want to know more about TC, where do you find it? Well, the internet doesn't know anything about TC. In spite of this program being around since 1999, No one's cared to write anything and post it on the internet about it, except the manual pages, which look like this, which I had to take a screenshot of to truly capture what it's like to read the documentation of this program. It's like what is that? It's like a red, dark crimson, and like green. Like that's the color scheme they decided to go for. But well, I mean, look at all those options. But it is quite difficult to read. Okay, so what are the things you can do with TC? Well, you can actually take that guy's advice. He said, what did he say? He said, you can do this with HTB. I was like, all right, I'll do this with HTB. And that's what TC offers you, this hierarchy token bucket. And it's like cake bins, where you get those bins, but you can configure each bucket however you like. You're not stuck with whatever the original developer configured for the buckets. So for each bucket, you assign a priority value, which is an integer. You set a rate, which is how much bandwidth this bucket is guaranteed. You set a ceiling, which is how much maximum it can burst up to, and that's optional. You don't have to set the ceiling. You can leave it unset. And there's also some other options that you can choose to set if you want to. And basically how the algorithm works, and this is kind of simple. I don't know exactly how it works, but this is like the top, the top kind of design. You start the bucket with the highest priority, which is actually the lowest value. Like bucket of value 0 is has more priority than bucket of value 1. That's just how it works. Closer to 0 means higher priority. So start with the bucket with the highest priority, and then take from that bucket up to rate packets, and then send them to the internet, and then go to the next bucket. And if there's any bandwidth left over, then you can go back to the buckets and start sending additional packets up to the ceiling values they have set. And like I said, this is a summary of how the algorithm works. It might have a way to still send some of the ceiling pack. It might not be two-step where you do rate and then you do ceiling. It might have a way to do ceiling while still doing rate. That's essentially how you can expect it to work. And if you want fairness in each bucket, you can also get that. You just put another little queue, a different tool in there called FD-coddle. And I'll give you the fairness where you make sure in each bucket, everybody in the same bucket gets like, equal representation to get their bits to the internet. And I did this is another thing that really gets me. That's the link to the manual page. The link sharing algorithm, this particular part of TC is copyright 2002. That's the last time the manual's been updated. 20 years later, there's still a section in the manual that says fix me. So I don't think we're ever going to find out how to use the link sharing algorithm. So maybe 20 more years from now. All right, last thing. Oh, 2 more things. So we know how the buckets work. How do we get stuff in the buckets? Well, TC comes with another tool called TC filter, which lets you mark packets to get them in those buckets. And there's a lot of different filters. There's the U32 filter, which lets you match anything. You just say like, okay, for any packet, look at this offset. They look like 6 bytes into the packet. If these 6 bytes match some kind of selector, then this packet matches. Like you can do there's so much stuff you can do with that. There's the firewall filter, which if you're more comfortable with IP tables, which is a different Linux tool, as far as how you want to sift through packets, you can have IP tables apply a mark to packets, and the firewall filter will pick up that mark and put it into the bucket it's supposed to go into. And you have, I believe this is pronounced flower, not flower, but you have the flower like flow. There's a flow filter, and then it's like, well, the flow filter wasn't good enough. We made the flower filter, as I understand it. That's another way to match. It matches on so much stuff. Like that's just a small summary of things you can match on. But look, it's got the DSCP field in there, which is we can think of a lot of ways we might be able to use that. And there's other filters as well. Okay. Now, what if I actually want? I want the strongest kind of priority on my network. I actually want, if I'm uploading at 100% of my bit rate, I want Emoto to get 0, not a single byte able to be uploaded. That is actually possible. That's not possible with Cake. Cake will always make sure that a device, like that guy said, like he literally said on the GitHub, he firmly believes, just like John Nagel said, every device is entitled to 1 byte of bandwidth. TC Prio you're in full control. Like if you want to give Emoto 0 bytes, if you're using all of the bandwidth, you can do that. It creates an arbitrary number of queues called bands. The default is 3, but you can set more if you want. And it comes with built-in DSCP support, where you can there's an example right there. Like you just type these in the SSH prompt in OpenWRT, and it's set up. You just add the filters after this, but that's it. It's great. And like what that is, that prio map is just like, okay, if the value is 0, apply the 0 flag. If the value is 1, apply the 1 flag. If the value is 2, apply the 1, like the 1 priority. If the value is 3, apply the 1 priority. If the value is 4, apply. And I just love that kind of command line syntax. It's literally just, okay, here's a list of numbers for each priority. Like, okay, the value is 1, it goes in. It's just great. It's just, if I was going to write, if SG4E was going to write some kind of like one of these schemes of like packet control on the router, I'd write this one. Like this one just makes total sense to me, and it's just so simple to use. And yeah, the TeraChad, we've gone from GigaChad to TeraChad. The just best, super easy to understand algorithm. If a higher priority band has a packet, send it. That's it. That's it. if my PC is on band 0 and I want to send something to the internet, it won't even check. It won't even check anybody else's queues. My packet gets priority, which is great. And if you want fairness between each band, you can also do that with FD-coddle. Like you can still, like if I don't know, I'm gonna have, let's say I have band number 1, I give Emoto band number 2, and I give Mom like band number 3. Like and maybe like Emoto and Emoto number 2 shared band 2. We can get fairness where okay, it evenly divides in that band among everybody on that band. You can do that. And it's extremely CPU efficient because like the algorithm doesn't do anything. It just check and send. Like it's great. So and I think you guys thought you weren't going to see it one more time, but I mean this is the most Chad algorithm of them all. So yes, we need the Chad Linux Penguin. So that's it for me. Yeah, that's the scenario. I've fixed it now. I'm smiling. SG4E Emoto doesn't get any more bandwidth because I'm on TC Prio band 0. She's on TC Prio band 1. So the YouTube short is going to take a little bit longer to get uploaded. If you want my actual recommendations for, okay, I have buffer bloat SG, what do I do? You just use Cake. I gave you the chat options. Like Cake is great for, you want Cake unless you want to do something really messed up, which is what I want to do. I want to monopolize the whole network. I want to give myself strict priority. But you probably want a more sane setup where everything's fair and like when one person downloads a game from Steam, the whole network doesn't go to trash. You know, it's split fairly among people when they need it. You use Cake for that, and that's the setup for Cake. If you have OpenWRT, it's possible Cake might be supported in your router even with proprietary firmware, but you can definitely get it with OpenWRT. You download that package. Everything can be set up in the web UI. You want to set your upload and download speed for your speed test. You go to the Q discipline tab. You set all that stuff for Q discipline. You can ask me later if you want to know more information about what each of that stuff does. And then you go to the link layer adaptation tab and you set those things. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Thank you for your presentation, SG. It was a little bit low. I didn't do this for mine. I want to do this for yours and mine if they have any questions. Does anyone have any questions for SG in the chat, or for me, I suppose? Before we move on, I'll remember to do this for the rest of them. I'll give everybody a few 30 seconds to respond or anything before we move on. And while they're doing that, who would like to go next once it gets set up?
Did you have to crop the penguin image? No, the penguin image is generated from ChatGPT, and I'm surprised. That I literally, the prompt was, well, ChatGPT has a new thing now called Sora, which like kind of wants to be better. It's like the cool kids image UI, like or image gen. Like they've been doing image gen for a while, but this one's like the cool artsy kind of one now. And the prompt was literally, give me the Linux penguin like he's an absolute Chad, and that's what it generated.
Not enough gen.
So
and that's why the penguin had nipples.
Yeah, and I mean, think about how much furry art that model must be trained on. Like the funny thing is, I've tried it with other things. I've tried it with like HoloLive members. I'm like, hey, give me all the HoloLive. Like, here's a HoloLive member. Doesn't even get the hair color right. It's very upsetting. But you ask it to give you the Linux mascot, like some furry crap. It's got you covered.
That's funny.
All right, yeah, Chibi. Absolutely, yeah.
I'm gonna go to the restroom first, though.
All right. No problem.
if I can assign MAC values we talked about before, does that mean I can actually assign priority to different computers on your network? Yes, you can absolutely do that. I'm surprised, like strict priority, I'm in the process of making the strict priority thing. I've had Cake on for a while. I want to try strict priority. The router I had was running a fork of OpenWRT that I thought was basically WOpenRT or OpenWRT, but it didn't support a lot of TC. Like a lot of stuff I was trying, I just get errors. I'm like, why am I getting these errors? And it turns out that like the fork I was running has very little support for it. So I've recently updated to the main line, OpenWRT. I'm going to be trying this stuff out now in actual practice. But I'm surprised. I would think people would want the kind of stuff that I was talking about. Like especially if you're on like a one-person connection and you've got like, there's like your phone might like run a backup late at night. Like this is what happens to me is I stream it late at night, which is when other devices on my network like automatically want to do stuff. Like Windows wants to send us telemetry data. Something wants to run like it's like, remote backup, or like something wants to download an update because they think 3 a.m. is when no one's using the network. So it would be nice if I would just say, all right, my PC at 3 a.m. is what's in charge and everything else can just like wait. But that's what strict priority is for, and there's very little documentation on the internet on how to set this up. So I was really surprised because I would think that there would be a use case for this, like exactly like you say, Sp0ck. Like, can I just set my internet's MAC address or my PC's MAC address and have that be prioritized? Absolutely. You set up the prio band, and then you set up TC filter where it says, all right, any packet from this MAC address goes in this band, and it works like that. But you'll find, if you actually Google how to do that, I think you just got to go to my presentation. Like,
Yeah.
There's very few resources that tell you how to set that up.
Yeah, I got to make sure to download our presentations. Oh, actually, yeah, mine is.
I can post mine in your Discord later. It's just a Google slide. Why did the two kanji squish together mean sister, but separate mean husband? Right, the left side means like right. It's like the radical is like woman, and then I don't. What does husband look like again? Hold on.
Those are different. Oh,
that's a good question. I'm like that guy on GitHub. It's a very philosophical question, PQ. You're right.
I don't know if I'm quote from John Nagel to
that guy really got me. Like there's those are the kind, everybody has people like that in your life who won't stop arguing with you, whether they're right or wrong. They'll keep insisting they're right, and they'll just keep arguing with you until you just stop.
Do you know who John Nagel is? That's the other question. Oh, not on. Do you know who John Nagel is? That is the other question. Because I've heard his name.
I don't.
Okay.
It's not a real name.
It's a name. He's a guy.
I don't believe it.
All right. Love your blue. All right. I think we're all. Why is it stuck in here? Ready for your chibi stream. Oh, yeah.
There it is.
All right.
Okay. Hello. Are we good?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll mute.
Okay. No, you're good. Thank you, Tapioca. Okay, so here we are to my presentation. This was going to be Demystifying the Bravely series, subtitled Answering Why the Hell is Something Called Bravely 2nd and Bravely Default 2, which is also just an excuse for me to ramble about Bravely, which is a series that I really love. PQ, don't worry about it. I'm not going to spoil anything, if that's what you're asking. So, before we get to anything Bravely, we're going to start with this handsome young fellow here, Tomoya Asano. You probably recognize his name if you know anything about Square Enix. He started work at Enix in 2001, and then, 2 years later, when it became Square Enix, he got more of a prominent role. He produced a few games. He produced 4 Full Metal Alchemist games for some reason, and then also a few remakes of early Final Fantasy games. And then eventually, after producing a few of those, I think he kind of got him and his team kind of got the decision to be like, well, do y'all want to keep making these or do something else? And they said, okay, well, we'll do something else. So they made a spin-off of Final Fantasy that was sort of designed after the more classic Final Fantasy, like the one they'd been remaking. So this is this was made in this was in 09, 010. So this was when like FF12, I think, was the most recent one that had been out. So at this point, Final Fantasy was like weird, right? You get this like super 3D open world and like crazy graphics, and like you fight in the world with no, skipping into a battle. So like, okay, let's make a Final Fantasy that's like the old Final Fantasies. It's nostalgic, very classic. And then to go with that, they got Akihiko Yoshida, I think is his name. I didn't write it down, but on the visuals, so it's very, very cute chibi style, with like very kind of what they were going for was like storybook visuals. And that's kind of the whole vibe with the storytelling too. Very cute, like a little story you tell someone, bedtime story. I love this game. It's super adorable. It's very quaint. And despite being a Final Fantasy spin-off, compared to a lot of weird, wacky spin-offs, something like, ones that change the genre, like Kirby Tilt and Tumble or whatever, this is meant to be basically as much like an old Final Fantasy as possible. You got 4 heroes, each, there's 4 crystals. You got to save the world from chaos, literally just chaos. It's not literally like in the Final Fantasy world or whatever, but it's got all the staples. You got turn-based combat with random encounters. But there's 2 things other than the really cute style we got going on that make this game different. We have the crown system, which is kind of like, oops, I just hit my mic. We have a crown system, which is kind of like the job system from some of these games, where everybody starts as like the most basic job, and then as you go through the game, is there not audio playing? You don't hear the audio? It's pretty quiet. You'll hear it now?
No. Well, do I have my muted? You're muted. It's my fault. You're good.
Oh, okay.
Let's just leave it on there for a minute so we...
Yeah, sorry, okay, is this good?
I also don't have my desktop audio on. Let me do that. Yeah,
I think Tapioca probably heard it because he's in.
Here we go. All right, there you go. Oh, that's not... No. Stop. Is it good?
Just as you go through the game, at certain checkpoints, you get they're basically jobs, but they're called something different. So they give a character a really cute little outfit and different abilities, stats, all that good stuff. So you get stuff like black mage, white mage, thief, like physical attackers, knights, all that good stuff. And the other thing that makes this game really unique and really cool is it had, all these JRPGs, they got HP, MP, and then sometimes they have some like fake third bar for the game, whatever. This game has HP and action points. There's like HP works like you expect it to, normal amounts, but then AP, you either have 0 to 5 AP. And everything a character does costs AP. Most things just cost 1, like using an item, attacking, that kind of stuff. That just takes 1 AP, and you get 1 AP per turn. So when you're doing that kind of stuff, you don't have to really worry about it. But any kind of special ability, any kind of magic, that will cost multiple AP. So, and like, that's the reason you want to be like something like a black mage or a white mage. It costs less AP for them. And I wrote down boost command because there's something called boost you can do where you defend and give yourself an extra AP by not consuming any that turn. And this is a cute little system. It gets an interesting dynamic where you have to manage it kind of like in a different way the way you manage MP in a normal JRPG. And it's going to matter for Bravely Default. So I wrote down the releases here. Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light wasn't the most amazing game ever. That didn't sell the most. I loved it, but it was successful enough to start talking about a sequel. And so they started working on it. But as you can see here, by when the 3DS came out and when this game came out, it became pretty obvious pretty quickly that the sequel was going to be on the 3DS. And when that happens, you start, it's Nintendo. So they have to put all the gimmicks from the new console on it to say, okay, we want AR, we want Street Pass, etc. So then it kind of starts becoming something new. Plus, the team was feeling confident enough after this to say, hey, maybe let's just make our own IP with this. So that's what happened. We get Bravely Default. So let me put the audio on here. Cool. Bravely Default, if anyone ever asks you, is the spiritual successor to a Final Fantasy spin-off. So just like Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light, it's very similar in a lot of ways. It's styled after the kind of nostalgic, classic Final Fantasy games. It's got that simple Final Fantasy premise: 4 crystals, each with an element, 4 heroes who you control, turn-based combat, random encounters, and 2 systems that are based on what Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light had, but it kind of expanded on a little. There's the job system, which is like basically the coolest thing about Bravely Default. It's like the crown system, but even more expanded. So everybody has a job, and then they have a kind of a sub job, and then you can have the active abilities from both those jobs, and you can start equipping passives from all the jobs that you start to master on each character. So it's fully customizable. You're very much encouraged to mix and match, and they're just fun because each of them has a cute little outfit for everybody. So every time you get a new job, you go, oh, you can play dolls with all your characters, because it's like the other game where it's all these really cute chibi styles on hand-drawn backgrounds. I guess that's not exactly like Four. I don't think any Four Heroes of Light had any hand-drawn backgrounds, but if I go back, what's the back button? Kind of get a better view of, all the towns in the game look like this. Just super gorgeous hand-drawn backdrops. Yeah. And so on top of being this kind of nostalgic JRPG, it was very much envisioned to be accessible as well. Thank you. And like I was saying before, it has used all the new gimmicks for 3DS. It's got Street Pass to build up a little town. You get villagers and people you pass by. There's an AR movie and lots of AR cards that came with it. There's like 3D support for, I don't remember how much of the game, but I'm pretty sure the vast majority, I think, had 3D support when you were like in the dungeons and like looking down. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention actually how about Bravely Default. So we're back to having HP and MP instead of having the action points like Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light. But now, just like before, everything you do costs a Brave Point, except now it's literally everything you do. Usually only costs 1. There's some special abilities that cost multiple. And the gimmick here is that just like boosting before, you can default, is what it's called now instead, where you defend and you gain an extra point for that turn. But now you can also brave up to 4 times a turn to do multiple things in one turn. But the thing there is that if you're empty, like if you're in the red, like below 0 on your BP for the next turn, you won't be able to do anything. So all this kind of stuff further cements Bravely Default as its own thing, similar to Final Fantasy. And even though it's kind of like a nostalgic JRPG like that, it's becoming its own thing. And before I talk about what's next, I need to go over the different releases for this game because it's a little messy. So, in the that's the thing I should say is I love Bravely. Obviously, Bravely Default 1 has 100% my favorite soundtrack in any video game. I feel like I had a more clever segue to that than just bringing it up, but here we are. So, when it came out in Japan, it was Bravely Default Flying Fairy. That was a Japanese-only release in October 2012, and it went great. It went so great that almost immediately talks of sequel and localization happened. And so when I think like 9 months later, when the sequel got announced, there was for the sequel version is what it was called in Japan. It came out with lots of things. It had a lot of quality of life features and some new content related to the sequel. There was a teaser trailer if you beat the game. There were new kind of like optional super bosses with the Street Pass content that it was kind of vague, but it was content from the sequel as well. The balls, if anyone plays Bravely knows. And then there's the Bravely Second Hourglass to give you like another free turn you can charge up, but it charges up over like 8 hours of real time. It also added microtransactions to buy this Bravely Second points, which is really scummy, but whatever. But it's worth noting that in Japan, this updated version is called For the Sequel, but overseas, it's called Where the Fairy Flies. So everybody here who's played Bravely Default or heard of it, we know it's called Bravely Default Where the Fairy Flies. We've never got Bravely Default Flying Fairy. We got a better version with more quality of life. So which is something that some people, including me, might have thought like, wow, it's kind of weird this game has the option to just turn off encounter rates if you want and stuff like that. That's why. It's because they added new quality of life whenever they released it overseas. And then, as most of you probably know, and I'm very extremely mega excited for, is that this game is getting a remaster in just about a month. Actually, it's not the 5th yet, but it's worth noting that it is the Bravely Default Flying Fairy remaster, not the Where the Fairy Flies remaster. So, as we saw from the trailer, as evidenced by how they worded on the website and a few other things, this is going to be based on the original release. So there's none of the there's more quality of life than like they're re-adding quality of life that wasn't in the Flying Fairy release and more generally, but there's none of the sequel content. So there's no Bravely Second, and I think there's a few other things, but people were kind of freaking out. There's no second hourglass in the screen. Another big thing is like I said, you can change the encounter rate in Bravely Default for the sequel Where the Fairy Flies edition to 0% or 200%, but on the website they show off like, oh, now you can change the counter rate and you can change it from -50% to 200%, and we're like, what? So that's kind of another thing, is like the remaster is like based on the perspective for a lot of people who played the original Japanese release. It doesn't start at 50%. Like the normally encounter rate is at 0% or like 0 extra percent. And you can change it to be -50%. Or actually, am I saying it wrong? Is it just 100% and you go to 50% and 200%? Point is 50% less encounters is what you can change it to now, to where before it would be 100% less encounters. There we go. That makes sense. And so just keep that in mind. That's an interesting fact that is based on the original version and not the version based on adding stuff for the sequel. Okay, so now we're going to keep talking about Bravely instead of just the stuff and how successful it was. It was really successful in Japan. So like I said, they localized it. And then it did even better overseas. Well, maybe not even better overseas, but it did so much better overseas than Japan expected, than Square Enix expected. Because at this time, they'd kind of been focusing on games for what they thought was the Western market. And then they make this game, this nostalgic JRPG, super, like this is the JRPG, maybe not the, you know what I'm saying, based on these classic titles that Westerners probably don't like. And the Westerners eat it up. They say, ooh, I love this, I love this, I love this. Like, what the hell? So this literally prompted them to have like an official statement and go like, okay, we're going to reconsider our marketing strategy because apparently we've been doing something wrong this whole time. So this isn't exactly what I'm talking about, but it's worth noting that the original release week for this game, it was over 140,000 units sold, which is over 85% of like the original shipment, how much was made. And then over 1 million copies were sold worldwide less than 2 years later. So I'm not going to answer this question yet, but I want to get some answers from y'all of how much y'all think Bravely Second sold in its release week. And it's worth noting that Bravely Second will also be releasing in Japan only at the start. Okay. And then, so now we're going to keep talking about, this game is really successful, not just overseas, but in Japan too. So they say, okay, the team wants to continue this and there's support for it too, so let's start building it up. Maybe we'll make this into a whole franchise that's going to be like as cool as Final Fantasy. So we get 2 spin-offs in Japan. There's a mobile game and a browser game. They get a manga series. They get 2 supplementary books. They get 2 drama CDs. They're getting all this stuff. Be like, all right, Bravely, let's go with the Bravely train. It's going to go great. And it didn't go great. And this is really the interesting part. So 2015 in Japan and then 2016 for the rest of the world, we get Bravely Second. It was still the best-selling game in Japan in its debut week, but it reached 100,000 units in its debut week. Not double or anything of what its original Bravely Default's sales was, like 66% of what Bravely Default's initial sales were, which is really really bad for an extremely anticipated sequel they spent a lot of time and money and effort building up. Or like Bravely Default 1, we got an updated version, but there's no like fancy subtitles or anything. It's just we got a slightly different version than what Japan got. And this is really interesting because I was like this before I did this research. This is surprising to a lot of people. Like, if you ask basically anyone who's played Bravely that speaks English, they're probably really surprised by this because Bravely 2nd is a pretty popular game. Like, if you talk to people and say, hey, what's your favorite Bravely game? A lot of people aren't going to say 2nd, but there's plenty of people who are going to say 2nd. I would say overall it's the least popular of the 3 Bravely games, the main Bravely games. But it's mostly that in Japan, there's a much different, especially initial reaction to the game. And like, I'm not just basing everything on like the 100,000 units sold thing. There's a lot that's kind of going behind this. So we kind of need to talk about what's going on with this, because really, if you just play Bravely 2nd and play Bravely Default, this probably isn't going to make that much sense. So what's the deal with Bravely 2nd? That's stupid. I shouldn't have added that. I guess it made me laugh. So we can first talk about what's good about Bravely 2nd. It's still got a good soundtrack. It's got vastly improved gameplay and balancing overall. I think it has my favorite gameplay in the series. And there are a pretty good handful of great bosses and ideas and plot threads. Like everything about this guy that's on the screen right now and his thread is really, really cool. Like, look at this guy. Isn't this guy awesome? So cool. And it's a lot like Bravely Default 1. It's got funny stuff. It's got cute stuff. Similar art style. Hand-drawn backgrounds. Chibi stuff. Cool stuff. But then there's also a lot of stuff that's not great about Bravely 2nd. One of the biggest things is that the writing in Bravely 2nd, I wrote worse here, but it's really just very different to what Bravely Default's writing is like. This is something I figured out that's really funny to me, is that I didn't mention this earlier, but apparently Asano like played Steins Gate or whatever and liked it so much that he got the guy who made it or wrote it to work on Bravely Default. The point is, Bravely Default, it's still an anime game with like tropes and plots and funny haha. But it's kind of like, I don't really want to say it's necessarily dark, but it kind of is. And Bravely 2nd is very memey. It's got a lot of pop culture references. In the first chapter, Tiz makes a Star Wars reference and there's a bunch of other stuff too. And on top of just the like haha funny memes and pop culture references that weren't in Bravely Default 1, the writing is just the way the plot goes. There's time travel and like weird holes with that, inconsistencies, and this game has so many stupid MacGuffins in it that just dictate the plot and have no relevancy to anything else in the world, but whatever. Again, it's partly it being bad, but also just it's very different, because I can recognize that me not liking it might be a little subjective. Some people also say that it's a lot like Bravely 1, perhaps too much so. 2 of the characters in your party are the same characters in the first game. There's a lot of reused areas, and all of the asterisk users from the first game, aka job holders, half of them are the same from the first game. And also, I said the soundtrack's good, and it's a good soundtrack. We're listening to some of it right now and in the previous slide, but it's not made by Revo, who did the first soundtrack, and like I said, the first soundtrack is so good. God, it's so good. Bravely 2nd, it's a good soundtrack, but it's not Revo. You might know Revo because he is the kind of like the only consistent guy in a band that's Sound Horizon, or sometimes called Linked Horizon. They did, I think the only thing you might really know them from off the top of your head is they did the Attack on Titan intro, the Hawuriya Huga. I can't do it. You know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about, I promise. Point is, Bravely Default 1 soundtrack extremely good, and unfortunately Bravely 2nd just is a step down. And then there's the side quests. I'm not going to go into them yet, but that's another thing we're going to keep in our mind for later. So, in here we're going to talk about stuff that's mostly a problem for the Japanese release, as opposed to just stuff overall. Again, the side quests, we'll get into that next slide. But there was a thing where, in order to access some of the features in Bravely 2nd, in the Japanese release, you had to sign up for a Square Enix account and to access it, and what am I looking for? Like login, I guess is what I'm trying to say. you all know how annoying that is when you're trying to do something. And it's like, oh, can you make an account with us and give us your email? Like, no one wants to do that shit. Everyone hates that. And it was for stuff that, basically, stuff that was the same or congruent. That's not the right word exactly, but stuff that was already in Bravely Default 1. So it was like we're having to do extra steps that we don't like for stuff that we already had in the first game. And again, it's worth mentioning that the kind of air and hype surrounding this release was very different in Japan. Like, they're the one who got all this fancy, like, spin-offs and supplementary content leading up to this. And again, like, this is a JRPG mostly made for a Japanese audience. It was not made generally with a Western audience in mind. Like I said, they were surprised, extremely surprised to do it so well in the West. See it do so well in the West is what I mean to say. And there's probably other stuff too, honestly, but I don't speak Japanese and can't go into the Japanese Bravely community, so I can't tell you. So you're gonna have to take my word for it. One other thing I want to mention here, on top of, like I said before, the fact that the game, the remaster, is going to be based on the original version, that is no reference to the sequel, is kind of a big tell. And there's another thing where there was a 10th anniversary stream, and it was the leads behind the Bravely team were there, and they talked about Bravely, and they just didn't talk about second, like, at all. They talked about Bravely Default 1, talked about Bravely Default 2, and I think they mentioned second, like, twice when they were prompted to. So, even if I probably can't pinpoint every single problem with Bravely Second compared to Bravely Default 1, it's clear that the team behind it, and perhaps the fan reception, is, like, embarrassed for what Bravely Second was. So I talked about the side quests, and in order to really kind of illustrate what's going on here, I'm going to explain how they were in Bravely Default 1. So, what happened to the music? Is it, like, loading? Weird. Okay, so I was talking before how jobs are kind of like the big thing, one of the biggest appeals of the Bravely series. For some reason, they're required through these magical things called asterisks, which is give you the jobs. So there's this evil, army or whatever, where, in Bravely Default 1, where you, like, chase the different members around the world and you foil their mostly nefarious schemes and kind of beat them up at the end and get their jobs. It's a good system. I love it. You get the cute little vignettes as to what these people are up to, and you chase them around, that kind of stuff. So it's good that they were well implemented, because I imagine the vast majority of people who play Bravely are going to do almost all of these side jobs to get all these side quests to get the jobs, because they're such a big part of the game, both gameplay and kind of everything else. That's why I have this GIF here, so you can kind of see all the different outfits and customization and stuff. So, unfortunately, in Bravely Second, they suck. So, like I said here, the vast majority of the jobs in the first game were behind these side quests. And then about half of the jobs in Bravely Second are behind them. But every single one of these side quest jobs is a reused job from the first game. And more so than being a reused job, has the same... the job is possessed by the same person from the first game. Which may not sound bad, but it's like... Okay, I'm just going to try here. So the way it is every single one of these side quests is it pits two random members of the Asterisk holders from the first game against each other in a made-up bullshit moral dilemma. And you have to choose a side, and whoever you choose, you beat up the other side and get their asterisks. So I'm going to give you an example here to kind of illustrate why this sucks. At least I think it sucks, and I'm pretty sure most people are going to agree. So in this example, we have this red mage Fiore de Rosa, who in the first game is a treasonous womanizer who brainwashes women to use them as political tools. And then there's the thief Jackal, who is a man with no scruples who wants to let people die of thirst because he wants to steal from others. And in the second game, you meet him, and he's like, oh, I want to help people. I want to let these people drink water because there's this magical MacGuffin gem called the Wellspring Gem that makes infinite water, and then I want to let the people have it so they can drink. And then Red Mage Fiora Rose shows up and he says, oh, I don't want to take advantage of women anymore. I'm going to legitimately explain what he says. He says, I want to take this magical water gem and I want to use it to research somnial energy, which is sleep, which has nothing to do with water, and I wanted to use it to make an energy source that stops all war. It's like, because I think the reason they did it like that is because they set up for a thing in the second town where like, oh, we're researching somnial energy, and then they tie it to a thing they made up that has to do with water. Okay, anyway, so let's say you decide, okay, I want to beat Fiora Rosa because I want the Red Mage job, I want his job, so I want to beat him up, or I want to let the people who are currently alive stay alive by keeping the Wellspring gem and live because they want to keep the water instead of taking the gem from them. So you get the job, and then the people do great in the desert, and then the researcher goes like, oh, boo-hoo, I'm not going to have the gem to research, but I'm going to research anyway. I'm going to do my best. And you're like, okay, well, there's pros and cons to this, but I feel okay. And then I'm not going to go into super specific details, but at some point in the game, there's like a reset. So you get to make all your decisions again, because there's a big theme of making a second chance. Get it? Haha, second chance. Funny joke. So now you can make your decision again. And kind of the main idea here is that you can beat up the other guy, so that way you get both jobs in the same playthrough. Which is, I mean, that's like fine. I get what they were going for here. So in most scenarios, most players are going to get both jobs, and by the game, see both sides of the story, right? See what happens if you make either decision, so you can kind of see what happens, kind of weigh and pros and cons actively. You could also just make the same decision both times if you really want to, if you really agree with that decision, but most people aren't going to. So this is already a weird scuff system, but it's okay. You can kind of see what was happening. So in Japan, in the original Japanese release, it was even worse. So no matter what happened, the first time you made a decision, when you beat up a guy, you got a bad resolution. So like if you beat up Fiora Rosa to try and keep the gem with the people, like I don't really know exactly what happens, but it's something like, I'm gonna catch my breath. You get something like, oh man, even though we kept the gem with them, I don't know, it's not really, the guy gives up. It's like, I don't want to continue my research anymore. And then the people, like the gem like dries up or something. And then if you beat up Jackal to get the gem to do the research on it, it's like, oh man, the research, we thought it would go well, but it's going terribly. The sacrifice, I'm sorry, it's not really turning out. So you're like, wow, what the hell? And then you get a chance to fix your decision. But it turns out it's stupid. So the way you have to fix your mistake is make the same decision. So what this means is that in a given playthrough, you basically have two options. You can either only get one job so that you can see the good ending, or you can get both jobs, which is what most people want to do because they want the jobs, and you get two bad endings so you feel like an asshole no matter what. So, yeah. I don't know how everything else to go with that, but that is not good. So, what happened after this? What did this mean for team? It meant that they said, okay, wow, sorry, we're not going to make Bravely. So what they did is they made something else and then made Octopath Traveler. They started working on something and then they ended up with Octopath. And Octopath came out to pretty good reviews. I still haven't played it myself. I don't really like. Okay, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here. Do people actually like how Octopath and like the 2D HD remakes look? I don't like how they look. I don't like the pixel art on this like extremely different art style, and then there's like non-pixel effects applied onto the sprites. Like the whole point of pixels is that you're not supposed to mix non-pixels with them. I don't get it. Everyone says Octopath looks gorgeous, and I'm like, maybe it would look good if there wasn't pixel art laid on top of this gorgeous background. Anyway, yeah, that's true. Maybe not everything needs to use it. Okay, rant aside. Octopath came out, it was pretty good. So, and then after that, the the mobile team in Japan said, "Hey, can we try making another Bravely game, really, please?" And they made a Bravely game, Japan-only mobile game, and people liked it. It was clear to Team Asano, which is the thing at this point, that they were like, okay, maybe people still want Bravely, even though we did a really bad job, apparently. So then with the money and the morale from those two fairly successful projects, we eventually come back to Bravely Default 2, the new Bravely title, because they say, okay, we've got the courage and the mustard to make Bravely Default 2. So we get a worldwide release on February 2021. No Japan-only release, nothing messy like that. We just get a worldwide release on the Switch, and then later that year we get it for PC. And again, like everything else, it came about pretty good. I like it a lot. And it's got the Bravely formula. You got the turn-based encounters. You fight people on the overworld and then go into a turn-based combat. There's a job system that works the exact same. It's not the same jobs, but it's the same thing where you get cute outfits. You can have 2 commands up at the same time, and you get the passive abilities. And it's got the exact same Bravely Default system. So now we can finally get to why the fuck it's called this. Turn the music. So, with the reveal of Bravely Default 2, there was an interview that came out, and one of the biggest parts of it was Asano releasing a pretty big public apology for Bravely 2nd, which, including me, confused a lot of the Western audience, because again, we didn't really know how that stuff was from before. He said, before I talk about the name, I would like to apologize regarding Bravely 2nd. Despite lots of expectations for Bravely 2nd, I feel that there were parts that did not meet the expectations of our fans. A reflection of the shortcomings has become a strong, rooted aspect of all the games our team is working on. And this is the most important one. They talk a little bit more in the interview about how, like I said before, Octopath and the Japanese-only mobile game kind of got them back on their feet. And then we get the question again of like, what's with the new game? What's the deal? Another producer says, this time we returned to our roots and decided to create a brand new world and new characters so that even those new to the series will be able to enjoy it 100%. The new characters have their own stories in order to make sure that there was no chance that they would misunderstand and think this wasn't a completely new game. We thought about what to make the title. So the reason it's called Bravely Default 2 is because they wanted to make it really, really clear that it's not Bravely 2nd. So they really, really wanted to make clear this is still Bravely, but it's not the world we were in before. None of the characters are here. None of the setting is here. None of that exists. It's still Bravely. Nothing else about it is the same. So they basically wanted you to make a double take to realize that it is different. So you can think of it kind of like the new game in a Final Fantasy series, except even in Final Fantasy you get stuff like reused character names and stuff like that from previous titles. Or you can imagine if Tears of the Kingdom was called like Breath of the Sequel, and then we eventually get another Zelda game that's got a completely different name. But I cannot stress enough, there's literally nothing in Bravely Default 2 that mentions anything from the first 2 Bravely games, except like Bravely staples, the stuff that's also in Bravely Default 2. There's stuff like there's still crystals, there's still jobs, there's still 4 heroes you can control, all that stuff. And I think that just about covers it. I think that answers all the questions. So that's the reason why the name is so stupid, because the devs felt really bad and wanted to make it clear to the Japanese audience that this is a new game that's not Bravely 2nd, because they think that everybody fucking hates it. And maybe they do. I don't know. I don't speak Japanese. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Chibi. How does this Patissiere Magnolia help me reduce buff bloat? It's a shame they botched Magnolia. What is the deal with Magnolia right now?
The Magnolia is the character is on screen right now. So in the Bravely 2nd, there's 2 characters in your party, or characters in your party in the first game, and then there's 2 new characters, new to 2nd, who are in your party. And one of them is this girl here, Magnolia. Another one is. Can I go back? Do I have U on this PowerPoint at all? His name is U, but it's YEW, like the tree. That's Tiz. That's
the
Idia.
tree.
You see, yeah, you can see him there.
Oh, that's you.
There he is. You. There he is.
Oh,
I
all right.
Bravely Default 1 is definitely my favorite of the Bravely's, and then as to what I prefer after that, it depends on what aspect you're asking me of. Like I said, I think Bravely Second is the best gameplay, and then Bravely Default 2 has a lot of ups over Bravely Second, but it's, I don't know. I think Bravely Default 2 looks a lot worse than the other Bravely's, unfortunately. Because it doesn't have the same. I didn't mention this, but the Akihiko Yoshida, the guy who's kind of like the art lead for these games, I think left Square Enix like halfway through Bravely Second, and he was like, "Okay, I'll finish Bravely Second," but they weren't able to get him back for Bravely Default 2. So the new art style is kind of like meant to emulate as much as possible. He's still got the hand painted backgrounds that look really good, but the problem, I think, the main problem is that the way they draw the chibi art style just looks kind of awkward with the Switch graphics and slightly different art style. I don't know. I should probably be stopped because I could literally sit here and talk about Bravely for hours. I love this series.
All right, Chibi, let's go. Listen, while we're waiting for the next presenter, I just remembered we'll be able to go back to the best burger place ever in fucking existence when we're in Minneapolis. We gotta
The
make
best
sure.
fucking burger place, bar none. Maybe also the
Bar
loudest.
None. It was incredible. So-
Fucking mountain of fries.
Oh my god! And the burger, I savored it. I didn't even know it was thin. It's so good. So we're gonna be so fucking pumped when we go there. I gotta make sure Pop Tart gets there as my roommate.
Most people in this call do not understand
Yeah, well,
that it's not actually that good of a place.
it is that good of a place.
Wait, did you
I'm
actually
not
like? Were you really
joking.
feeling that burger place? I thought we
I
all
was-
agreed it was mid.
Some of us agreed it was mid because we were sitting at the end of the table and we couldn't hear anybody. Some of us ordered too many fries. That was all of us. But
All
the
of us
burger,
ordered
the burger fucking slapped. The burger. You guys just don't know how to appreciate good beef.
When I think of that place, I just think of that picture.
Which one? There's a
The
guy there
one
with
of
a
the one
shoehorse
of
laugh.
Vandal and DTW. They made us delete.
They did make us delete. I still have it. I'm sure. I
That
forgot about
picture
that.
is so fucking funny, dude.
That was. I don't care about. I captured a fucking moment. I don't care if they're mad about it. It was a moment, just like the JD, like the pedal. All right. I think our last bit is Shoehorse, who's never experienced the burger place, and I know because the doppelganger Shoehorse was there.
I mean, I'm still here. I'm going
You're still
after
here too.
Shoehorse.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then,
Yeah.
Shoehorse, you can go next.
I was like, that can't be right. I thought we had
I'm
two
sorry.
more.
I forgot. I'm
Nah, we're all just
Yeah.
yapping for like half an hour each. So.
having a great time, so I'm just forgetting. All right. And Lax,
they,
you didn't put anything together, right? I know you definitely didn't. Who's talking about it? Yeah, go ahead, Shoehorse. I'll mute myself. Never mind. I thought SG for you muted. I saw an S mute. I thought it was a Shoehorse. My mic is also cutting out a lot, so I gotta make sure I shut up before it cuts out. No, there it went. Pokemon. All right.
There it is.
Shoehorse.
Well, yes. Welcome to my talk called Gotta Catch Just One. Now, you might be asking, why can't I catch them all? So, I mean, first, everyone needs to stop trying to full clear 100% their life. You know? You gotta just be like, look, I don't have to min-max everything. I just need one thing. I just need one. So the premise of this is you get one Pokemon. You're going to have one Pokemon. It's going to be your buddy. This is your IRL friend. They're going to be kind of like your pet, but they're not really a pet because they're a Pokemon. Which Pokemon is the right one for you? Which one is the right one for you? Now, the problem is there are 1,025 Pokemon. Also, we're not discussing regional variants. We're not discussing ones that can change their hairstyle when they're holding a gem or whatever. This is just basic 1025 Pokemon. I don't want it to be the situation where you're like, hey, check out this cool Mon that I have. But then all of a sudden, you travel to another part of the world and your Mon looks different. That makes no sense. Much less if you're time traveling and your Mon looks different, that would be problematic. So, 1025 Pokemon. To follow up with that, some more rules. Your Pokemon really should not be part of an evolutionary line. Really should not be. Now, obviously, you don't want to have a nice little, cute little Oshawott here, right? You get this Pokemon, you're thinking, that's my Mon. This is the one. I'm going to love it. I'm going to take care of it. It's going to be my best friend forever. And then all of a sudden, well, no, now it looks like this. That's a problem. That's a problem. So if your Pokemon can evolve, it will evolve, and you don't want that. Now, you might be thinking, what about Mons that only evolve when they're holding a stone? Yeah, same deal, right? Like, your little Pikachu accidentally touches a Thunderstone, you weren't paying attention, now it's a Raichu. What are you going to do about that? Or there's even some Mons that are just like, oh, they only evolve like the Farfetcheds of the world. They only evolve if they land 3 critical hits in one battle. Yeah, you're probably not going to be letting your Mon battle unattended, but again, it would be devastating if all of a sudden Farfetch leaves one day and comes back as a Sirfetch'd. That would not be good. So, your Pokemon can't evolve. You're asking, why can't it be a fully evolved form? Well, you can't just get a little baby Charizard. That doesn't exist, right? And yes, there's something to be said for adopting older Mons, right? Older Mons are still Mons, you know? They all need to have a loving home. Fully agree with that. I'm just going with the idea that you want to get a young Mon and raise it and sort of be with it for the duration of its life. So for that reason, you can't have a Mon that that is part of an evolutionary line. Either it evolves or has evolved. Also, we are going to eliminate legendaries, mythics, paradox Pokemon, things like that. Things like that. In this case, this Pokemon is literally a god. That just seems mean, unfair, cruel, that you should, have one of those things as a pet. This Mon in particular, its left front leg clearly has the most eye rolling of eyeballs right in the middle of its leg. In fact, its leg is just really an eyeball with like a very elongated nose and a slightly open mouth below it. I'm sorry to point that out, but that's the deal with this Mon. Same deal with, Pokemon from the future or whatever. We're not messing with that. And a lot of these are supposed to be like, oh, there's only one of this Pokemon ever. Well, it's not fair to just own it. So, no legendaries. This means that instead of saying that there are 1,025 Pokemon, before we get rid of legendaries, we're down to 201. And now that we get rid of the legendaries, we're down to 89. So here are our options. These are all of the Pokemon that could be right for you. We're going to have to start eliminating some of them. So we got some rules. Rule 1, no humans. It's just, you can't. Like, no. I shouldn't need to elaborate. No humans. So let's gotta eliminate some humans here. Tends to be mostly fighting things that go away. So humans are gone. Next up, no ghosts. It's spooky. Ghosts aren't real. Just no ghosts. No ghost Pokemon. No ghost Pokemon. So again, a few more have to go. They're gonna fade away, just like ghosts do. We still got a lot of options. I don't know exactly how many. Fewer than 89, that's for sure. But look, there's still some great ones out there. Next up, no inanimate objects. Like, come on. This is a pile of sand. I mean, this one's a sand castle. I think its precursor is just called like I'm a big sand pile. This one's also a ghost, so it's already gone. Yes. Uh, but no inanimate objects. You want your Pokemon to be like based on actual, you know, living things out in the world. Uh, yeah, and ideally also not a tree or a cactus. So we got to get rid of some things here. We're going to lose, the keychain. We're going to lose the pile of rocks. We're going to lose the lay. We're going to lose the cactus. We lost some other things in there. There was just a hexagon. There was like a snowflake. The sun and the moon are gone. The cloud, the busty cloud is gone. Busty cloud is gone. I know that a cactus isn't. I know that it's not inanimate, but it's like also not inanimate. It's just a cactus. It's just doing. It's just doing. Cactus is gonna get cut later. Don't you worry. So it's going. It's going away. Okay. Y'all have seen Jurassic Park. At least one of them. We cannot have Mons out here that should be extinct. This is a bad idea. This is an absolutely terrible idea. There is a reason these Mons are not on the Earth anymore. So our Aerodactyls gotta go. Our Relicanths gotta go. There's some other ones in here. I don't know. They gotta go. If they're dead, they're dead. They're dead. We did just sort of kind of bring back direwolves. I know we're working on woolly mammoths. They gotta go. They gotta go. Now, also, Relicanth's not technically extinct. We just thought they were, but it's basically a fossil. I will also preface all of this, even though we're now more than halfway through, by saying I am by far not the world's foremost authority on Pokemon. So there is a decent chance that I am claiming that something should get eliminated, but it's still up there. Sorry. It's probably getting eliminated anyway. All right, no fish. No fish is the next rule. Now you're probably thinking like, dude, what? Why no fish? That feels incredibly arbitrary. But there is perfect logic to this. So I want to have a Pokemon. We all want to have a Pokemon. We want this Pokemon to be able to sort of live free, hang out. Like, if you're gonna, this is all part of the whole you don't need 1,025 Pokemon situation. If you have 1,025 Pokemon and they're all just living in a Pokeball nonstop, that is cruel and unusual punishment. You are a monster. Monster. The whole idea of having this Pokemon is that it should never have to go into its ball. Unless it likes it, I don't know. There's some Pokemon who like have the swanky ball or whatever, the swanky Kong, and they love the ball. I don't know which ones those are. It's like how some animals like to have, they like to go into their crate. They find it comforting. Look, if the Pokemon wants to go into the ball, it can. I get it. But I want to make sure it has the option to not. Which is the problem with fish. A fish tank is just a Pokeball. That's all that it is. It's just a Pokeball. So if you have a Fishmon and it's just got to live in a fish tank in your home, that's not living. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So the Fishmon, we got to get rid of them. They're just not viable. Yeah. So we're going to lose some fish here. There's actually a bunch of them. They're kind of all over the place. Love Disc going away, the Tatsugiri going away. You hate to see it, but the fish gotta go. In a similar vein to fish, not having fish, I believe that it would be not fair to have a large bird. Not fair to have a large bird. Where's this large bird gonna go? Where's this large bird gonna go? You know, this large bird's gonna want to fly outside. This large bird's gonna want to fly around. You gotta let it fly around. Now, there are some small birds. There are some small birds, and they can chill in a cage for a little bit while they're in your home. But for those of you who like have parrots, things like that, you can let them fly around your home. That's fine. People do that all the time. People do that all the time. But the large bird, it's not that the small birds love confinement. It's that they can be unconfined within your home, but the large bird is not going to be comfortable. Not going to be comfortable. So we got to get rid of the large birds. So your skarmories are going away. They're also flying away. I figured that was more appropriate than just fading away. So the large birds got to go. We had to make some interesting calls. Delibird, not large. What else we got that's not large? There are some other non-large birds that are on here. But look, there are 89 mons that we started with, and we got to get rid of 88 of them. So something's got to give, including this next rule. Similar to the large bird, do you have 10 plus acres of land for your mon to roam around on? No? Well, then you can't have a giant mon. Sorry, not sorry. You can't have a giant mon. Your Sp0ck1, with its little tiny arms floating around out there, your Sp0ck1 is just not gonna like living in your 1,000 square foot home in the city. It's just not. Or what would that be like? You know, 90 square meters, something like that. It's just not gonna like it. It's just not gonna like it. So we can't have any massive mons out there. And yeah, there's a lot of big boy mons. There's a lot of big boy mons. Kangaskhan's gotta go. Taurus has gotta go. Lapras, see you later. Miltank, love you dearly, but you gotta roll out. Tropius probably heading out here. There's just so many huge, huge mons. And it just would not be fair. Just would not be fair to like keep them in your tiny little home. Just wouldn't be fair. IceQ is that big? Really? Didn't realize IceQ is that big. But you know, you learn something every day. Yeah, Orthworm, still kicking around. Still kicking around. All right. Next up. Can't we just get rid of the bugs? I know what you're thinking. You're like, dude, why are these bugs still here? And the answer is yes. We can still get rid of these bugs. Except for Shuckle. Shuckle's not really a bug. It's not. It's not a bug. So the bugs are going. The Illumise, the Volbeat, they're getting out of here. That ant thing, it's going away. Orthworm, time to go. Orthworm's 8 feet? Why is it 8 feet? That's unnecessary. We don't know these things. Again, not one of the world's foremost experts in Pokemon. All right, the list is smaller. The choice is becoming easier to make. Next question you got to ask, will small children ever be near your home? Not even in your home, but near your home, right? Will that happen? Yeah, if so, there are some mons that you just can't have. You just can't, right? Giant snake, no good. Thing with a giant mouth on the back of its head that's going to give you nightmares? No, not a chance. Weird Venus flytrap looking thing, spiky sea urchin dude, gone. Those mons gotta go. They gotta go. It's just, look, it's just not safe to have them, is really what it is. It's just not safe to have them. All right. So I think we're at the point where we should take stock of what we've got. Should take stock of what we've got. Here are all the remaining mons. We've got non-large birds. We've got dogs. We've got Pikachus. And we've got miscellaneous. Not too bad. Now, the deal with the non-large birds is if you just want to have a non-large bird, just get a bird. You don't need a Pokemon. Just get a bird. It's the same deal with dogs. If your Pokemon is just going to be a dog, you don't need a Pokemon. You need a dog. So the dogs are going away. And also, Pikachu's is basic. I love me some Pachirisu. I know it. I love it. But the Pikachu's got to go. One of them looked more like a guinea pig, but it's got to go. All right. So now we're down to 9, and you got to ask yourself, can you really, really, really take care of that thing? Like, can you really take care of that thing? So if we're looking at this, a koala, you cannot take care of that. That thing's going to die. You just can't take care of that koala. It's not going to happen. Chibi, I'm going to need you to look away for a second. I'm going to need you to look away. I'm going to need you to look away. But this thing that should live in the tropics, in Hawaii, if you live in Hawaii, sure, maybe. But if you don't live in Hawaii, Pyukumuku, it's just not going to make it. It's just not going to make it. It's not. Look, I'm doing this for your own good. It's not that Pyukumuku is a bad mon. It's one of the 9 that are in contention for a mon that you should own. It's just not. It's just not a fair, safe mon to own. And for all y'all Ice Cube deniers, I know this is not the most Chad of penguins that we have seen in the last couple of hours. But that thing is going to melt. You can't have Ice Cube. It's just not. It's just not going to happen. So we're down to 6. Next question you got to ask yourself with these 6 is, do you even know the name of that Pokemon? Like, really? You actually know the name of that Pokemon? And I don't think you do. So that one is gone. See you later. Now, some of y'all have noticed that there's kind of a cheating mon here. There's kind of a cheating mon. Ditto has got to go. Because you can't just have a mon that's like, I get to be all the mons. It's not fair. I agree. Could it be maybe the most practical choice? Probably. But nah. You gotta be an adult. You gotta be an adult. Also, I don't trust many of y'all with a Ditto. Right? I really don't trust many of y'all with a Ditto. There's gonna be like weird things with smiley faces in your home that you're gonna be doing things with, and it's just not okay. So Ditto is not an appropriate choice, and you just need to pick one mon. So we're down to our final 4 options. You got yourself Shuckle, you got yourself Zangoose, you got yourself Kecleon, you got yourself Spinda. I think all of these are perfectly wonderful choices. You can't really go wrong with any of these. Can't go wrong with any of these. If you told me that you were getting your family a Kecleon for the holidays, or a Zangoose, or a Spinda, or you went to the local SPCA and got yourself a Shuckle, yeah, sounds great. Sounds great. I will come visit. We'll hang out. It'll be a good time. Be a good time. I'm loving the commentary on which mons you think. Now, ultimately, I had to make a choice for myself, which one I would want to have, I feel is most appropriate for me and my lifestyle. So these were the decisions that I had to make. These are the deciding factors. So one, I want a mon that can help me in a fight. You know, I didn't literally get beat up a lot as a kid, but in theory, as gamers, you know, you know, you know, you know, we're nerds. We're dorks. We want something that could help us in a fight. Would love to have something that could help out around the house. You know, could help me actually be productive in my life. Also, I want a mon that's got good taste in music. Now, one of these mons clearly has good taste in music. Clearly. The only downside is I might be allergic to it. There is a chance. However, the mon for me, and maybe the mon for you, is Zangoose. That's not what I thought it was going to be when I got started. It's not what I thought it was going to be when I got started. But really, it fits all the criteria. It fits all the criteria. Look, for everyone who's like, this is a wild, insane choice, you just need to ask yourself, have you just already decided that you are going to not like Zangoose without giving it a chance? And I think you got to give it a chance. You got to say, I'm not going to be biased. I'm not going to let my own personal whatever cloud my mind. I'm going to make my list. I'm going to come up with my criteria, and I'm going to see what happens. And look, when you fill out that BuzzFeed survey and it tells you what your profession is going to be in life, you just got to roll with it. Just got to roll with it. Also, yes, this thing will mess up some snakes. So that is why Zangoose is, for me, the choice. Can I draw its feet? This Pokemon's feet are not two giant L's, and they're not purple, so I can't. Muck, I see nothing wrong with that. I see nothing wrong with that. Like I said, it's got good taste in music. Probably could go to some fish shows with it. Probably enjoy. But anyway, any of the 4 finalists, I think, would be a fantastic choice. Thank you. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Wow. Thank you, Shoehorse, so much for that presentation.
That was really good.
Excellent.
And
Why am I wrong? Again, the final 4, any of them are good choices. Taste in music, it's David Bowie. Look at this thing.
Yeah,
Look
I
at this
got
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Up to watch people. I mean, you want to hang out with that on a regular basis? Also, saying it's a spouse is so funny and pretty true.
Where did that come from? Where was that one?
Sp0ck1, that you're pretty much describing a spouse. I'm
No.
asking you. You really, and they're generally saying too. That guy looks mean.
Well, so this is
Dare.
just, again, the only problem with all of these is that you're just going with the one animation, or not the one animation, the one image of it.
It does
You
not get
know?
any nicer looking. It doesn't have fingers, Shoehorse. How is it gonna help? Tell me what Zangoose is helping you doing in the house.
Opening cans.
No, tomato sauce is on the floor. There's
Remnant's asking you, where is the music taste coming from? I think that's a very good question.
The music.
Could you explain?
Yeah. So this mon clearly in the 80s was listening to Flock of Seagulls. Absolutely. Also a big Bowie fan. Opening cans. A big Bowie fan. I mean, I mentioned Flock of Seagulls, but like clearly loves new wave. is on the cutting edge. Probably used to read Pitchfork a lot more than it currently does. Yeah, but dabbles with Olivia Rodrigo. Yeah. Could also probably scratch your back.
I hope
I
not.
ran.
I think there's a good point to less than helping you in a fight. I think he deters a fight because probably no one's
Yeah.
gonna pick a fight with you if that thing is alongside you. I'll give you credit for that. I think
Yes.
fights just won't start.
Yes. And Moko, I fully agree. Zangoose listens to full albums. And I'll tell you, not on vinyl either. Zangoose can't be bothered with getting up to flip the album
scratch
halfway
it.
through.
Yeah, he couldn't.
But listens to the full album and is like, yeah, I know the deep cuts. Zangoose is a homie.
Putting a man in a ball is cruel, but bringing it to fish is okay.
Well, I think the implication is that it would want to go because it has good taste in music,
Yeah,
which ostensibly includes fish.
absolutely. Well, no, that was just because it had bloodshot eyes.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
It does
Does.
too. I was really rooting for.
Now, what's great is when Rio rolls this in some number of months or years, I will have no memory of what this looks like, and it will be the worst drawing you've ever seen.
He has the right to just choose to make you draw it.
It's true. Zangoose is it's a feline ferret hybrid.
Zang.
John Bowie. You not knowing Audino was the highlight.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's feline based. It's got the feline nose.
I mean, isn't it actually a mongoose, or is it supposed to be a mongoose because they fight snakes or whatever? Isn't that the lore?
Isn't it pronounced Among Us?
All right, well, I think we can go to the next presentation now.
I feel like I don't know about this Type 2 Jams lore, and I'm worried that I got off the fish train somehow.
Yeah, so really, for anyone who's like, wow, I can't believe he chose Zangoose, just be thankful I did not give a 50-minute talk about fish. That could have happened.
No, it was a very good presentation, Shoehorse. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If Tapioca didn't have to go, I'd request Zangoose right now, but we are not done, so make way for
sorry. I have to go next and ruin all the fun.
No. Not what I mean.
Oh, no.
No, mine's not nearly as good as his, so.
Well, Laxus isn't either. Get in here, Lax. I hear there's a scuffed PowerPoint with your Tapioca.
Alright, we're live.
Getting off my truck.
Oh my god, we're getting ads on the Sp0ck stream. You better enjoy this half a penny I'm giving you right now, Sp0ck. We're sitting through this pre-roll.
I turned off all those. Rio said once he wouldn't sit through anybody's stream for an ad unless they were like the greatest. So I turned off all of the ads on my stream as much as possible. So, not my fault.
Alright, so are we good?
I can see your presentation. Oh, yeah. You should full screen it though in Google.
How do I do that? Oh, no, we gotta go back. How do I do that? F11? F11.
Nice. All right.
Okay, cool. So, hi. My presentation is the Slav epic and why it rules. I did not want to talk about video games. I did not want to talk about computers. So, and that is about 90% of what I have to talk about. So we're digging deep. We're going to one of my lesser interests, and that is art history. Full disclosure, I am not an expert on this. I will feel the intense judgment of Shoehorse silently watching me this entire time. But that's fine. Also, full disclosure, well, something to keep in mind before we start, that art history is not linear and it is not a singular storyline. For the sake of this presentation, we'll be considering it as such, but just know that all kinds of things are happening at all kinds of times, and trying to sort of narrow it all down into one story is going to inevitably miss a lot of things that were happening. But with all that being said, we are discussing the Slav epic. It is a good piece of art, and we will get to that. But first, we have to cover some background. So, also, I went with the default PowerPoint slides, like SG, sorry. Consider this. It's the late 19th, earliest 20th century, like 1850s to 1900s, that kind of time period. At this time, France is still the capital of the art world, at least the Western art world. Obviously, art is happening everywhere, and in particular, Paris. Paris is like the center of it all. There's artists all over the place, but Paris is sort of the center of it all. And at this time, things are getting increasingly weird. Up until around the 1850s or so, there was something called the academic style that was very dominant as a way of painting. And it basically, you had to paint a certain way. There were certain things you could paint. There were these academies that were sort of the tastemakers that decided whether or not your painting was any good or whether or not anyone would see it. And there were all kinds of rules. And basically, artists started to get real fucking sick of that. So things started to get real weird. So we have here an example of something from 1857. This is The Gleaners. You may have recognized it. It's kind of famous. And this was considered fairly controversial at the time. The thing that it was doing that it was innovative was depicting like poor people in paintings. The art critics are like, what the fuck is this? These people are poor. Why would you paint that, you idiot? So that was actually considered controversial at the time. But things would sort of rapidly start to spiral out of control. And within just a few decades, we now start to see paintings like this show up. This is the Martinique landscape from 1887. And things are quite different now. This is more of an impressionist type painting. We can see here it's no longer quite so literal a representation. But it still is true to life in some ways. I can't get into trying to explain Impressionism right now. I'm too stupid to do that one off the cuff. But you see what I mean, right? We have like a flattening of perspective. We've got the looser brush strokes. Things are quite different. And things would continue to get even more different. This is Woman with a Hat from 1905. And by this point, we're totally off the rails with the colors. We're like, that lady is just straight up blue. That lady is just blue. But, it makes some sense in a way if you think about it. It's a good selection of colors still. And there are other paintings happening too, like this one. I include this one mostly because it's funny. This is Monet. This is the Big Chad. This is a painting of his wife. He's going through his anime phase with this one. Something that's happening in France around this time. You have to think about like the whole world at the time, right? Because think about it. In the 1850s, Japan was opened up. They had been closed off for hundreds of years. But then it was like 1850s or 1860s or something. Japan is forcibly opened up for trade. And all this Japanese art starts to get out to the rest of the world at this time. And basically it kicks off like a big weeb wave in France where French artists are like, holy shit, look at that. Look at all that shit they were doing in there for 200 years. And they're inspired by that to start doing sort of things like that in their own art. Like think about, I don't have a slide for this, but think about like the Great Wave off Kanagawa. That big fucking wave, that like famous Japanese thing. Flat colors, very stylized, sort of the composition of it as well, very asymmetric. And that sort of thing was like not what they were doing in the West at the time, but they started doing it, and that's kind of what influenced things like this and like this, where they sort of started to get more stylized with it. And there were all kinds of art movements going on, inspired by all kinds of things. Yeah, that is what I was referencing. But one of the art movements that was going on, this was in the 1890s that I want to focus on for a second, is Art Nouveau, which you've probably heard of. Art Nouveau is definitely influenced by Japanese art. It's sort of hard to describe. I realized when I was making this slide that I don't really know how to put it into words. It's more of like a you know it when you see it type of thing. But if I had to, it's kind of like Art Nouveau is kind of has these like long flowing lines. That's like peak Art Nouveau. Everything is very decorated. Everything is very fancy. And there's these long, flowing, organic, inspired by nature type of shapes and lines and things like that. And it shows up all over the place. It's really, I think, not mostly a painting thing. I did include this painting because I'm basic and I love this painting. And this is often held up as a good example of Art Nouveau painting. But Art Nouveau shows up in all sorts of disciplines, anywhere you could find art. So, like, here's a really cool staircase. And you can see what I mean with the lines on the railings going up the stairs, and the way the stairs as well are kind of like smooth and curved and stuff. And there's those sort of like plant lines on the walls in the back too. This is a pretty well-known picture, but there's also, I had to include this because I thought it was really cool. Look at how fucking cool this skylight is. This is by the same architect. This is just like some Belgian dude who was going absolutely ham at the time, and they demolished this in 1948, which really pisses me off. Like they didn't even know how nice they had it. They were just like, oh, this is out of style, and they just fucking demolished the building. And now all we have is like 3 photographs of it, and that sucks. And actually, they actually kept the entire front of the building in a warehouse to this day, which I find hilarious. Somewhere in a warehouse in Belgium is the front of this building, and not the rest of it. I don't know why. But that's totally unrelated. But it shows up in furniture as well. Here's the American connection. This is a Tiffany lamp. We still have these things and kicking around the U.S. to this day because we just love them so much. The sort of stained glass lamp thing. There's also stuff like this. You've maybe seen stuff like this before. These posters. For some reason, there's all these Art Nouveau posters out there. This one is advertising travel to Monaco, apparently. I don't know how, but it's advertising rail travel to Monaco. And this is how we launch into a long conversation about F1. No, we're not doing that. But it turns out that a lot of these posters actually come from the same guy. We can see his signature down in the bottom left. It says Mucha, M-U-C-H-A. And Mucha is actually the protagonist of our PowerPoint today. So we got to talk about Alphonse Mucha. Alphonse Mucha was a Czech artist. He was born in 1860, and he moved to Paris in I don't know when. I kind of forget. It was like 1880s maybe. But he is the king of really cool posters. He got very famous worldwide in the 1890s for his really cool posters. Like, here's a cool poster, here's a cool poster, here's a cool poster. You're kind of noticing a theme with this guy, right? Whatever they told him to advertise, he would just draw an anime girl, basically. But that was his thing, and people loved that shit, and he got very rich and famous off of it. Well, maybe not rich, but he got very famous off of it. But he did not think much of this art. He wanted to be taken serious as a painter. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be serious business painter guy. So that leads to our guy going to America. So Mucha travels to America in 1904 looking for someone to finance his art career. And he meets a dude named Charles Crane. And Charles Crane is described by Wikipedia as a Slavophile. As far as I can tell, he has no connection to Eastern Europe, but this guy seemed to just be really, really into Eastern European culture. If you're around today, he would love the Pathologic games. He'd be playing Stalker. He'd be playing Underrail. This dude is just a Slavophile, whatever that is. And his interests really align with Mucha because Mucha is a Czech nationalist. He did move to Paris and stuff, but he is very much a Czech nationalist. Remember, at this time, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is still a thing. This is still the 1890s we're talking. This is pre-World War I. And Mucha is really into his people, the Czech people, the Slav people, and what he wants to paint is the history of the Slavs. So with the money from Charles Crane, he moves back to Prague in 1910, just in time for World War I. Good job, Mucha. Fucking genius move there. And Mucha begins work on his masterpiece, the fucking Slav epic. So, what is the Slav epic? The Slav epic is a series of 20 paintings depicting the complete history of the entire peoples of Eastern Europe. These paintings are really goddamn big, is the first thing to know about them. That's a painting, that's a photograph of Mucha working on them in his studio. That's him sat next to 3 of them. Like, they're really big. There are 20 of these things. And it's not just a gimmick. Like, it is pretty cool, but if you think about it, if Mucha's goal is to sort of glorify his people and his culture and show off how badass they are, like, what better way to do that than with an extremely monumental art exhibition? And that's what he wanted to do. That was his goal. So he produced these absolutely massive canvases that took 18 years to paint. I guess we'll just get into them then. There are 20, so I'm not going to talk about all of them. I don't want to keep you here all night, and also I don't have a lot to say about a lot of them as well. But this is the first one in the series. This is Slavs in their original homeland. We see the Slavs in the bottom left. We see the depiction of their religion in the top right. At this time, the Slavs are still pagans, so that's like a pagan dude in the top right. It's a theme you're going to see a lot in these paintings. Mucha really likes big floating dudes. Pretty much every painting is just going to have people floating on top of it, sort of divorced from the perspective of the painting, sort of to represent different things. In this case, it's their religion. But the Slavs are currently in a bad place as we meet them at the start of their story. There's a big war going on in the background, and they are clearly losing the war because they're very unhappy down there in the bottom left. The second painting is the introduction of the Slavonic liturgy. We've got even more floating people. This time we've got these like classic Eastern Orthodox art-looking people up in the top right. And this is depicting the Bible being translated into Old Slavonic, which I guess was their language at the time. I had to do a ton of historical research to understand all these paintings. A lot of them are very cool, but also depicting very specific things that I'd never heard of before. And this is one of those things. I guess this is considered a very important moment for their culture and the preservation of it. And so that's happening. Moving ahead a bit, we have a lot of paintings like this. Like, if there's 2 categories that most of these paintings fit into, it is really busy court scenes and really busy battle scenes. Actually, every one of these paintings, for the most part, is extremely busy. Mucha seemed to love painting like 30 dudes at once. Like, just... They can't just be in a room like 5 guys translating the Bible. It has to be like 300 people in a giant open space doing it. And there's always, every scene is always incredibly busy. So this is the Bulgarian Tsar Simeon, who's some important guy, I guess. My historical knowledge is really lacking on this one. But I just wanted to include it as an example of the court scene, of which there are several. This is one of the battle scenes. He actually likes to do after battles. There's like 3 of these that I think are just after the battle of something. This one is after the battle of Vitkov Hill. And here we see, this is a theme that's about to come up a lot. The sort of golden light pouring down on that guy in the middle of the battlefield. I guess he's praying or giving mass or something, but this sort of golden religious light comes up a lot in these paintings. But the ones that I like and feel like are the most interesting to me are the ones that are not court scenes of King Guy or battle. I really like the ones that aren't those, which mostly fall into the religious category. So here's the printing of the Bible of Kralis. I tried so hard to find an example of someone pronouncing that online, and I could not find one, so we're going with that. But I really like the lighting in this scene and like the use of color. To be honest, it is a bit tough to comment on stuff like that when we're looking at a photograph of the painting, which is then showing up on my monitor, which is also showing up on your monitor, which will all have different settings. So it's hard to comment on the color exactly, but I do love the use of color in this painting. It's very bright and very light. You really get a great sense of like the exact vibe of the day. It's very pastel, it's very bright. it's just a good day, man. I don't know. And sure enough, they're printing the Bible, so I guess it is a good day. It's kind of interesting. This is depicting the translation of the Bible into the Czech language. So this is sort of like in a parallel to this one back here where they were translating it. Keep in mind, he is painting the complete history of the Slavs, basically. So like, if we go back here, this is like, I think this is supposed to be like 1000 AD, thereabouts. But we come forward here, now we've got a printing press as well. Everyone is wearing different clothes. I love all the little details like that. You really get a sense of the passage of time that now they've got a printing press for it. This is actually Muka's hometown in the background. I forget the name of it. I'm completely blanking. But that's where he grew up. And sure enough, that's actually where they printed this famous Bible that was translated into Czech. We'll call it Mukaville, sure. This is another one that I think is really interesting. This is the Oath of Omladina under the Slavic linen tree. This one's actually pretty political. So this one, the Omladina were actually a political organization in the 1890s. They were like a left-wing Czech nationalist political organization. And they were actually all arrested, put on trial, and then thrown in prison. But this is them. We once again see this sort of golden light shining down on them. They are, I guess, doing some kind of oath around the Slavic linen tree. And we've got the big Slavia in the center on the tree. That's sort of like the goddess personification of the Slavs. So this is really like, it's super nationalist, but it's also super political because he's expressing his support for these people who, at the time he was painting this, I think would have gotten out of prison by this time, but it would have been very recent memory. So that's kind of interesting to me. And yeah, I love once again, I love the lighting. I love how he paints lighting on people. Like, I think that just looks really good. Like the gold light on the people. Unfortunately, this painting is unfinished. I didn't even notice that for a little bit. But like, if you look at the adults that are standing up around the Omladina, they're just straight up not finished. Like, this is one of the last ones that he did, and we'll get to the actual last one he did, but I think he wanted to devote most of his attention to that one. So I think this one ended up unfinished, unfortunately. The year on these, so he painted them between 1910 and 1928 is when he did it. I don't have all the exact years memorized, but I believe that this was 1926. So right at the end. This is painting 18 in the series. Painting 19 is the abolition of serfdom in Russia, which is kind of also an interesting political one. Serfdom had been abolished in Russia in, I think it was the 1860s, sometime back around then. It's like a bit before Muka's time, but not that long ago. And this is like a much more dour scene compared to, like, we go back, we look at this one, and there's just like, you know, there's no golden light here. There's maybe a little bit peeking out from the clouds. But overall, it's a very gray scene. For having just been emancipated, the people are not that excited, most of them. Like, there's a lot of confused milling about. And I almost wonder if Muka's painting it this way because he has the benefit of hindsight. You know, this happened 40, 50 years before he painted it, so, like, you know, he knows how it turned out for them. Like, we know where this one's going, and it's not great, so... I think Muka looks at it from that perspective, possibly. And even though it should be a much more joyous occasion, or at least you'd think it would be, it's really still very gray. This is painting 19 out of 20. So obviously, and as well, I should say, for some reason these ones are out of order. Most of them are in order. Like this one, 800, I think, is when it's supposed to take. Sometime back in the hundreds of years, like not even 1000. And then they sort of, as the series goes on, you're progressing through history with the Slavs. These two are out of order for some reason. I don't know why. This one's like 1890s. This one's like 1860s, I think. We are now fully finished with the timeline as we now look into the future for the Slavs. Because painting number 20 is the best one in the whole series. It's the apotheosis of the Slavs. I fucking love this painting. This painting goes ridiculously hard. I yeah, this is like the thesis statement of the entire series. Like, if you get to the end of the massive exhibition hall and you still don't really get it, then like he's punching you in the face with this one. We've got like the sad past of the Slavs in the bottom right. We have the wars they had to survive in the top left. And then we have, sort of bathed in golden light, the present condition of the Slavs across the center. Those are meant to be soldiers coming home from war in the center there, which is actually pretty interesting. Muka has sort of a strange perspective on this, and I do wonder what his idea was when he started painting this series, because he started painting this back in 1910. But note the flags; those are the winners of World War One. I think that Muka saw the end of World War One as like the liberation of the Slavs. In a sense, they're no longer under the foot of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They're now their own country. And he died before that was no longer true, so he didn't have to know. He doesn't have to know what happened. But he saw a bright future ahead for the Slavs. They are free. They're in their own land, and so he actually was very happy to see his own side lose World War One. In a sense, is kind of interesting. But we have the massive, free, powerful Slav in the center. We've got Jesus over him in the back. We've got a fucking rainbow overhead. He's busting out all the stops. Everyone is just glowing yellow. This painting is completely insane. It has so many people in it, and it is extremely good. And there you go. I don't really have a point to all of this. I just wanted to share with you a piece of art that I think is interesting, the Slav epic. And that's it. Thank you for reading my blog post.
Wow. That was incredible.
That was awesome.
What the fuck? My fucking sister. Yeah, I guess that would be a halo, huh? It's always been a really weird looking one.
Yeah, that's like an orthodox thing. I feel like they do the circle around the head as a halo.
Yeah, that's true.
In which of these paintings would I eat a burger in? Definitely this one. Either of these two. Either of these two just seem like the vibes are really positive to me.
It's gotta be printing of the Bible for sure.
The printing of the Bible is great. I think this one looks a little bit too much like something. I'd feel disrespectful almost eating a burger.
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Whereas the printing of the Bible, I'm eating that fucking burger, man. But it's a much more open space.
I
I feel like if I just like did it, like nobody would notice. You know what I mean? I don't think they were inspired by the Dream of the Fisherman's Wife SG.
Oh, Jesus. Hey, sorry, my microphone's being really weird. Was that all 20?
No, this is not all 20.
thought
You
you
can
were
easily
gonna
find
give
all
us
20
all
online, but I'm not going to talk about all 20. A lot of them are just like this, or it's just like, I don't know. This one's a little bit more straightforward to me. It's kind of just like, battle scene, and it's just like, all right, historical painting, sure, but
Yeah.
I'm less interested than whatever the hell this is. Just fucking crazy.
Okay, well, who is that hippie in the who is that? Is that Jesus also?
The dude in the center, I don't think he's meant to be anyone specific. I think he's representative of all Slavs.
Yeah, he's just like Slav.
You'll notice that he's holding I do kind of wonder, he's holding like rings. And if we go all the way back to here, that dude is also kind of holding a ring in the front center. So I think it's meant to be like symbolic of unity or something, maybe. I don't know, man.
What is up with this one in particular? People are just fucking floating.
People are just floating. I assume that's, people watching on from the afterlife.
Yeah, because these people are the same color tone as the castle that was in the background when the people were all colorful.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really interesting one. All right. That was amazing. Thank you. Really need that.
Does the clap show up on the stream?
The clap does
Probably,
show up
yeah.
on the stream.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad everybody can't do that. This is the one time you want those annoying emojis on the
Potential.
screen.
That
What?
was gonna be good.
Stream is. Okay. Well, I assume Lax is not gonna. Right?
I
You
can
sure?
I can
Yeah?
definitely
Oh, you are streaming. I'm so
do
sorry.
this.
Yes. Yes.
I have the misfortune of being potentially the last person to present.
Well, isn't that the idea? Looks like it. All right, I'll go ahead and mute Laxaria.
All right, I hope this works. Okay, so thank you for giving me this opportunity to potentially be the last person to present for this wonderful spring PowerPoint extravaganza where we heard music, learned about buffer bloat, learned about art, and moving on. I'm going to talk to you today about unscientifically evaluating dad jokes with a personalized Likert scale. Before I begin, a few disclosures. I have no conflicts of interest to declare. I am not a father. I'm not a copywriter, so I didn't write any of these jokes. The views expressed here are solely my own, and this slide deck was completed in 60 minutes or less. So, as a quick introduction, what is a dad joke? Well, a dad joke is typically a pun presented as a one-liner or a question and answer format. The reason why it's called a dad joke is, generally speaking, it's meant to be inoffensive and appropriate for children. The term first appeared in the title of a publication a long time ago in 1987 called "Don't Ban the Dad Jokes, Preserve and Revere Them" by this editor and publisher of the Gettysburg Times. Fortunately, I was unable to source sort of a picture of the publication because every source I went to gave me like a paywall. So I'm really sorry about that. But you're free to look it up and come up with creative ways to get past that. Why am I particularly interested in unscientifically evaluating dad jokes? Well, dad jokes are really something that I kind of enjoy from time to time. It's definitely part of my bot. If you want to pull up a dad joke, you can pull up the bot. Are you on different sites? That's really weird. Okay, 1 second.
Okay, yeah, we see the
Does that work?
introduction. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Presenter view has betrayed me. Sorry.
Okay, yes. Go on.
Okay, so the term dad joke was actually supposedly defined in the Merriam-Webster dictionary added in 2019, and clearly anything that was added into the Merriam-Webster dictionary is of particular significance. I think some of the more recent terms added was a term like touch grass was added very recently, which I find kind of surreal. But the website does have a running list of recent terms added to the dictionary. So kind of moving on to how we're going to unscientifically evaluate dad jokes. Well, unfortunately, there's just way too many dad jokes to rate in any reasonable amount of time. So I just selected 5 randomly from my bot that queries, I think, a dad joke API that just spits out dad jokes whenever you want one. And I find that a pretty useful tool for adding unnecessary features to a chatbot. These will be rated on a 1 to 10 Likert scale, with 1 being particularly unpleasant and 10 being excellent. So just starting with the 5 that I picked out. The first one that I got, annual fact number 25, most bobcats are not named Bob. Well, the joke here really is that bobcats are wild animals and most don't have names at all, even though they're called bobcats. I don't find this dad joke particularly interesting. The fact that it's called annual fact number 25 is particularly seemingly irrelevant. Maybe there's an annual fact number 26. Maybe there's an annual fact 24. Who really knows? I'm not really sure if I want children near a bobcat. That does not sound like a particularly safe thing, particularly for maybe young children. Though I'm not really sure how appropriate that is for children in general. I'm giving it a 1 out of 10. I think it's particularly unpleasant. Moving on. I ordered a chicken and an egg from Amazon. I'll let you know. Well, clearly this joke is referencing sort of as an implied answer to the philosophical question, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, I'll order it from Amazon and I'll let you know. Kind of leveraging the fact that Amazon delivery times can be potentially variable depending on whether you got lucky, whether you live near a Amazon depot. You know, final rating, I give it like a 6 out of 10. It's pretty mildly above average. I found it was a little funny. Would I repeat this again in public? Probably not. The next dad joke. I saw an ad in the shop window, television for sale, $1, volume stuck on full. And I thought, I can't turn that down. Now, this is clearly a pun. Being unable to turn down what seems to be a good deal, and also the inability to turn down the volume of a television, is a very typical dad joke. I think what kind of strikes me as a little bit weird is that selling a television for $1 specifically because you can't turn the volume down just seems really strange to me. Like if it's an analog television with like a dial on the TV that you had to turn to adjust the volume, I could see that happening. If it's like a modern smart television, the volume being stuck on full seems just like a really weird software glitch. I guess there could be a potential way to kind of fix that. It's a pretty typical dad joke. I'll give this a 5. The next one I got from the bot. I wish I could clean mirrors for a living. It's just something I can see myself doing. This is really leaning on the idea that you can see yourself in the mirror while cleaning it, and also something that you see yourself as doing as a profession. I found this dad joke kind of unsatisfactory. There are many different ways to see one's own reflection while cleaning a mirror. You could clean windows, you could wax a car. There's probably a whole host of other examples that you could think of that allows you to look at yourself when you're doing something. Maybe if you're like a streamer and have your stream preview on another monitor and the webcam turned on, that's another way you can kind of go about it. No, if you ask me, I feel like you don't really have great employment prospects if all you want to do is clean mirrors. Um, I don't really imagine there's a very big market for a cleaner who only comes by, cleans the small number of mirrors you have in your house, and then you pay them for an hour's or maybe half an hour's of work, and then they go off their merry way. I give this a 4 out of 10. The next one I got, why can't you use beef stew as a password? Because it's not stroganoff. And this is another pun. It's a homophone. It really plays on the word stroganoff and strong enough. And kind of layered into that is referencing beef stew, because beef stew is, stroganoff is a kind of beef stew. I like food puns, so I give this a kind of natural +1. I'm not really sure why. I just find food puns very interesting. I give this a 7 out of 10. So what can we conclude from looking at 5 random dad jokes and kind of evaluating in an unscientific manner? Well, the average rating I got out of that was a 4.6 out of 10. I was very satisfied about how unscientific it was. I didn't have to reach out to an IRB to get human subjects exemption. That was great. I really do feel that maybe if we want to do this again, we should probably use a broader sample and with more reviewers. And if you want to participate, feel free to hold the bot up in this very short, brief amount of time and rate the dad joke that the bot spits you. I do think this is an area that could be more useful for further research. I think it'll be nice to have more raters for increased inter-rater reliability. I think that's something that, if you're interested, you can feel free to reach out to me, and we can definitely have a part 2 for this unscientific research effort. Concluding my presentation, I'm really thankful, and I want to give great thanks to Stack Overflow and the numerous random websites that taught me how to put laxaria together. Without laxaria, I would have to dig through mountains and mountains of listicles on the internet looking at dad jokes, which I actually did at first before I went back to the bot. And the listicles were very unimpressive. And I really wanted to thank Sp0ck for organizing our event today, and to everyone else who contributed excellent presentations. Thank you for your time. I will not be taking questions.
All right. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
On board. Throwing a horn.
It's
No
true,
questions. That's true.
The bottom tiss is
Norway is cooler. Norway exclusively.
Wonderful. You know, this is the first thing that ever got my sister to come to this stream. Greatest. Oh, wow. All right. I'm crying from all of this. Amazing.
this was awesome.
There were some funny things in there. Now, not even midnight. How adults have fun. Whoa. Twitch D. The only legit whispers you'll ever get on Twitch is from someone over 40 years old, because the rest of them are from bots, but 2 of them are going to be from your sister. All right. Well, and then is there any way to rate these? Yeah, but I can be. Is there any way to rate these jokes? I mean, I guess you're not taking questions, so never mind.
Yeah, come on, Spock. Weren't you there?
You're right. Wow. Okay.
Alright, when's
that
the next
was-
one?
Yeah, I don't think there is an even potential. I mean, PQ Remnant
There is a
could, if
potential?
Remnant was here, could have.
Oh no, I
sent
mean
me
like the next
the PowerPoint
party.
Oh,
Excuse me. I don't think we're getting another.
November.
No.
I was planning on doing another one the same time as last year, during
Oh,
this
okay.
whatever Sp0ck1 silliness of being. Make you all buy grills. So. This.
It's a bucket.
The bucket for sure. Oh, it's a bucket from SG's Diff Serve 8. Yeah, let's give a round of. This is what people do, right? A round of applause to everyone who. SG, Tapioca, Lax, BB, Shoehorse, and me. Fantastic.
And you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
That's what you put in the credits.
Keep saying this stream has ended. Probably not. Why? That is this stream has ended though. Thanks everybody for coming here too. Yeah, viewers like you, indeed. Sorry you were just defunded, but oh well. We'll just wait a few years. Surely that'll be fixed. And they have other. Make sure you donate to your public broadcasting stuff if you like it. Alrighty. Let's stop the stream. Bye everyone.
Bye. It was awesome.